the greatest swordsman in history, dies, only to be reborn into the Empire's strongest family of swordmasters. With all the experience of the legendary Sword Emperor, and the blood of dragons flowing through his new body, his potential has no limit. The prodigies of the Cardenas family think they're competing against another student. They have no idea they're crossing swords with a living legend. Can anyone stop a man who has already mastered the sword once before? A renowned House of the Sword, protector of the Arcadia Empire, Cardenas is a powerful military force, keeping the peace in the vast empire. Each of the 7 knightly orders of House Cardenas possesses a military might comparable to the army of a small country. Among them is the most elite unit, composed exclusively of direct descendants, the Order of the Knights of the Golden Dragon. Direct descendants, who inherit the strongest Cardenas blood, are called Golden Dragons due to the golden hair and eyes with which they are born. It is said that dragon blood flows in their veins. Young dragons have gathered here to awaken their blood from direct descendants, whose powerful blood grants them supernatural abilities known as traits, to representatives of side branches striving to surpass their limits. Everyone in this Cardenas training center tests and hones their strength. At that moment, William swung his sword, parrying Verida's attack. He stood opposite her, then struck his own blow. He stepped forward, and Verida thought, it can't be. Even if he is number 1, she thought that the 2 of them could handle him. She can't believe it. He took out the 4th in an instant. At this time, Dylan was sitting near the bushes, his head down, and Verida parried another blow. But the next second, her eyes opened in horror, and she thought, She can't read his movements. William, the first, got as close as possible to her and delivered his blow. After that, Verida knelt down, and the first asked, Is this all they can do? Are 2 capable of against 1? He can't believe that they are direct descendants. Are they some kind of awakened ones from the side branches? They are no match for him. Too weak. No better than the representatives of the side branches. However, that is where it will end. The winner of this selection is him. He pointed the weapon at Verida. Meanwhile, at the Cardenas Young Dragon Knights headquarters, Swordmaster Fabian, commander of the Young Dragon Knights, looked at the system window and said, The current cadets possess truly impressive skills, even at this stage. So who do they deem worthy of a special rank? Philip replied, Yes. Although there are many talented youths this time, only one is qualified. Number 1 is William Cardenas. Number 2 and number 4, even combining their forces, were unable to leave a scratch on him. Fabian added thoughtfully, If he remembers correctly, aren't number 2 and number 4 also direct descendants? Philip confirmed, Exactly. Fabian asked, What about the others? He replied, The branch lines have been almost completely wiped out by now. Only a few who joined the direct descendant units survived, Fabian said, as he thought. The blood barrier is impenetrable. In this training center, a number is an indicator of strength. In other words, number 1 is the strongest of hundreds of candidates. Therefore, it is only natural that number 1 will receive a special rank. This time, comparison is unnecessary. Philippe added, Then they will assign a special rank to William. At this point, Bruno asked them to wait and suggested, Let's observe a little longer. Fabian was surprised, and why? He replied, To tell the truth, there is one unusual representative of the side branch left. It will not be too late to make a decision once they see his abilities. Fabian looked at him and asked, His number? He answered, Number 25. Fabian said, I see. Even among the side branches, there are those who accumulate strength and receive high numbers. Bruno added, Of course, number 25 can be considered an excellent result, but it is somewhat below his expectations. And yet, since he, the chief instructor, says so, there must be a good reason. Number 25, or Leonard Cardenas, unexpectedly began to stand out a few days ago and is defeating every cadet in his path. In that short time, he had risen from 381st to 25th place. Philip was surprised. He must be joking. Bruno said, Let him look at the screen. Right now he is, just like before, fighting number 1. After that, they began to watch the battle. At that moment, the protagonist appeared behind the first one, and he noticed it. He looked at him and said, He's a brave man to come here alone. Did he come to give up? He apologizes, but he is not in the mood to give in now. MC replied, He's glad to hear it. Then he will not have to hold back. The next second, William got angry and, releasing energy, said, How dare a trash like him? He must give up his sword. He will make him understand. The protagonist thought, I see, he wears the number 1 badge for a reason. His aura is completely different from the others. Now they will find out. Then he assumed a stance and commanded his opponent, attack. He would show him his place. He thought, what is he capable of now? The next second, William pushed off the ground and jumped, swung his weapon sharply and shouted, He will crush him along with his sword. MC looked at him seriously, then parried a powerful blow. Streams of energy flew in different directions. The fight continued. Their swords crossed again, and then the protagonist found himself behind William, but he sharply turned and ran to attack again. The protagonist said, His sword is not so fragile that some cadet could break it. William again covered the weapon with energy and was indignant. Is he mocking him? He swung his weapon, and then repeated the attack again and again, but MC easily parried his attacks. The observer was surprised. What unusual fencing. Unlike the traditional fencing school of the Cardenas house. And yet he's surprised. Not a single wasted movement. He parries all attacks with minimal effort. In fact, he hasn't even launched a single real attack yet. At that moment, William shouted, "Stop running." All he knows is running. He concentrated energy in his weapon and then launched an attack, spinning around himself. The protagonist jumped to the side and then slowed. The ground beneath him began to crack. He concentrated energy in his weapon. William became even more furious. Pulses of energy flew in all directions, and MC seriously prepared for the attack, then took a step forward and said, "His strength is truly impressive." William shouted, "He's got the gift of speech for someone who only does running. He must fight him seriously." He sent a burst of energy forward, but the protagonist sharply dodged, jumped to the side and thought, "Strength is strength, but his assessment of the situation is also fine." However, he still lacks instincts honed to the brink of life and death. No matter how excellent a cadet he is, this is his limit. At that moment, their swords crossed again, and William shouted in surprise, "What?" The protagonist jumped back, and those watching were perplexed. It can't be. This guy is fighting on equal terms with number 1. Is he really 25? It's like a completely different person. At that moment, MC rounded the opponent from the side. William gritted his teeth and thought, "Damn." He lost sight of him. Then he noticed the protagonist in front of him and asked, "When did he manage to do this?" He shouted, "Impossible. How could someone like him?" The protagonist smiled and said, "He lost, number 1. With these words, he threw the opponent aside and thought, but for his former self, this would have been impossible. But now all his memories returned to him. Memories of his past life, of Ren, the man who was once called the greatest emperor of the sword. Ren dedicated his entire life to the way of the sword. He reached such heights that he could easily cleave the skies and crush mountains with a single swing of his blade. His strength alone earned him the title of Sword Emperor. But that wasn't enough for him, so he challenged the heavenly demon, the most powerful being of that era. Their battle lasted for several days. The fury of that battle surpassed all human limits. It is said that the destruction was so great that it changed the very map of the region. And as for the outcome, then Ren raised his tired gaze, trying to catch his breath. He said, he doesn't understand. His swordsmanship should be perfect. So why can't his blade even touch him? The heavenly demon smiled and replied, "It's all about the fundamentals." Until now, he swung the sword only for the sake of survival, never grasping the true meaning of it. This immaturity and the result of neglecting the basics ultimately proved fatal for him. Ren asked, "The basics? What a trivial insult." The heavenly demon said, "What nonsense. He was just a stray dog, yet he challenged him and came this far. Impressive. He would show due respect to someone about to depart for the next world. Rest in peace, O he who was called the Sword Emperor." At that moment, Ren collapsed to the ground, dropping his sword from his hands. He thought, is this the end? Will it all end like this? If he had one more chance, would his blade finally reach him? He raised his wounded hand. And so, the legend of Sword Emperor Ren ended in crushing defeat. However, at that very moment, where no one could have imagined, a new legend was born. Voices were heard nearby. "Hey, is he dead? Is he still breathing? Crap, should I call the instructor?" The next second, the protagonist's eyes suddenly opened, rising from the ground and sighing loudly. He looked around and thought, what? He looked at his hand and thought, this dream again. Then one of the guys standing nearby said, "Oh look, he's alive," and he thought he was already dead. He thought, but something's wrong. The others said, "Yes, he seems to be fine. Well, let's continue where we left off." With these words, the subordinate swung his fist and jumping to attack, shouted, "Look at you, you scared them. Take that, idiot." The MC, noticing the approaching attack, grabbed the subordinate's hand, and the others were surprised. Did he block it? The protagonist thought. The body moved on its own. What is this? Then the subordinate pulled his hand away and reaching for the sword said, "Oh, he's a puppy. He thinks he got lucky once." He ran to attack and shouted, "Don't get cocky." He swung the weapon in front of himself, but the protagonist sharply jerked his head back, avoiding the blow, and the subordinate was surprised. Did he dodge it? The MC held the sword in front of him and thought, his power moves on its own, as if his body is being led by something. With these thoughts, he punched his opponent in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. And the others were surprised. It can't be. This was no accident. He was just playing with them. Just now, he couldn't even touch them. How is this possible? It's like a completely different person. He doesn't understand anything. Ah, don't worry. They just beat him up. Does he remember? Then they jumped to attack and shouted, both of them, "Attack him." The protagonist looked at them and said, "I see." Now he understood everything. He took a stance, releasing energy, and added, he remembered everything. Then he struck the attacker in the chest, after which he flipped in the air, swinging his sword. He attacked another guy, and then sheathed the sword. The protagonist thought, he's been having this strange dream for a long time. He dreamed of a man fighting under a crimson sky. His long white hair fluttered in the wind. Because of this dream, he couldn't even concentrate on training. For so long, he felt only frustration, but now he finally understood. The events of that man's life and death appeared so clearly in his memory. It was hard to believe, but there could only be one conclusion. He was the reincarnation of Ren, the Sword Emperor from another world. And then he looked at his clenched fist and said, unbelievable. Reincarnation really does exist. He looked at the starry sky and thought, had his dying wishes really come true? After that, he frowned and said, my arms just fall off after a few swings of the sword. He flexed his wrist and added, it's all because of his reckless training. He thought, but from now on, with these memories and techniques, he will become stronger than anyone. He doesn't know who granted this wish, whether it was fate or just a coincidence. Ren couldn't achieve it, but he, the current one as Leonard, definitely can. He will use everything he has to become the strongest Sword Emperor, who will surpass even him from his past life. Sometime later, the Cardenas Training Center. One of the guys knelt before the first and said, "The aforementioned 3 are wounded. They will be useless during the field exercises." The guy added, "Their combat power will decrease noticeably, but it will not have a serious impact. This will not interfere with the execution of the plan, so the field exercises will go without a problem." William said, "By the way, he heard that one person dealt with these 3. Number 3 and 81. They say the fight was over in an instant. What numbers did these 3 have?" The others answered, "Numbers 329, 257, and 133, sir." The cadet said, "These are ranks higher than he expected. Number 381 really took down everyone single-handedly. If someone like him joins another faction, the balance of power will shift." The next second, a wound appeared on his face, and William, pointing his sword at him, said, "Let him watch his mouth. He thinks he'll be upset by some trash." He said, "Number 381, he should be brought to him. We need to take a couple of guys to drag him." He looked out the window and added, "Whether he'll make a suitable instrument is something he'll personally check." In his past life, the heavenly demon said he can consider this a parting gift before leaving for the afterlife. The reason he never reached the higher realms is all because he laid the foundation of his profound strength too late. In the 5 elements, the foundation and balance are everything. If he had laid this foundation when he was young, the result might have been different. In the present, the protagonist sat in a meditative posture. He concentrated the energy in his body and thought, he's right. He started laying the foundation when he was far from his prime. But if he could strengthen that foundation, starting at this age, he would first prepare this body to properly handle mana. Streams of energy flew throughout the room, and then the protagonist looked at his hand and noticed. It worked. Even when he was the strongest in the world, at this age he wasn't so good at handling internal power. What is the secret of Cardenas blood? Sometime later, the cafeteria. MC tried the food and thought it tasted quite good. A balanced diet is vital during the period of active growth, so it's best to finish everything. He folded his arms across his chest, and then Will approached him and said, "Number 381. He heard that he got into a brawl yesterday. Was he more hot-tempered than he looked? Usually he picks at his food, but today he has a real appetite. He's almost finished everything." The protagonist looked up at him and asked, "He's the 8th, right?" Will replied, "He's wrong. He's the 7th now. He just beat the previous 7th one." He waved his fist. The protagonist thought, "I see. So, ranks are determined through duels here." He asked, "What does he want?" Will replied, "He shouldn't be so cold. He came to share something useful. Hasn't he noticed how things have gotten tense lately? The high-ranking ones are expanding their groups." Will continued, "He knows himself, 1st, 2nd, and 4th. Before he could finish speaking, the protagonist stood up from his seat and passing by said, "Yeah, he knows. The golden-haired and golden-eyed ones are direct descendants of the Cardenas family." Will looked at the guys from behind and shouted, "Hey, be quiet, they'll be heard. Be careful." The protagonist said, "Get to the point." Will put his hand to his head and said, "God, he doesn't understand. Either he's so impenetrable or he's completely lost his mind." It was as if someone had changed him. He clenched his teeth and added, "He has to listen. That's what he's getting at. They're not just expanding their influence for no reason. That means if they don't unite, they won't survive." MC asked, "What does he want from him?" Will answered, "More than half of the 500 cadets have already joined them, but nowhere does it say that only the direct branch of the family can form groups. The 3rd and 9th are planning to unite with him. If he joins," he pointed to his badge. But the protagonist replied, "He refuses. He's not going to join anyone, but he's grateful for the information. He'll owe him." Will looked after him and asked, "What? Did he hit his head?" He doesn't recognize 381. After some time, the protagonist left the building and looking away asked, "Does he have business with him?" The cadet approached him and replied, "Of course. He hopes he enjoyed his dinner, 381. He has a few affectionate ones, but first, the first one calls him out." He pointed his sword at him and added, "He is willing to overlook yesterday's incident if it does not happen again." The protagonist thought, does the first one really have eyes and ears everywhere? Amazing professionalism for a bunch of kids playing at power. Then he walked forward and said, "He is not interested. Get lost." Another guy, angry, shouted, "What did he say, scum? He is just a low-ranking nobody." The guy ran to attack and shouted, "He will make him regret those words." But the next second, the protagonist spun around and raised his fist to strike. The opponent thought he closed the distance in one leap. Incredible physical strength for his age. After that, the protagonist concentrated energy in his hands and delivered 2 blows at once. One of the attackers shouted in surprise, "With his bare hands? What's wrong with him?" Then he noticed a shattered sword flying to the side and shouted, "A training sword." And at that moment, MC had already hit him in the stomach, causing the badge to detach from his chest. The protagonist thought, 157. Even those who are not at the top possess this kind of power. As he thought, there's definitely something in the Cardenas blood. Then he said, it seemed he realized that he didn't have a chance. He still wanted to continue? The guy in front of him gritted his teeth and told him to shut up. He is stronger than him. Stop acting like God knows what. Attack. The protagonist noticed his number, 98, and said, well, then he will give him what he wants. With these words, he appeared behind the 98th and swung his fist to punch. And just a few seconds later, the badge flew to the side. Watching from a second-story window, Owl said, he'd simply dealt with him playfully. He smiled and asked, had he really been hiding his true strength until now? He didn't understand. His past was clean, so he wasn't a spy. At that moment, the protagonist turned toward the window. The observer was surprised. Had their eyes just met? Had he noticed his gaze from such a distance? Well, never mind. In any case, it looks like things are going to be much more interesting this time. They were sick to death of the predictable developments like last time. With that, he made a few notes and added, he has high hopes for him, number 381. He believes that now he is not just number 98, Leonard Cardenas. Meanwhile, the guy was running down the corridor with a few other comrades and shouting, hurry, it seems number 98 is heading to the training ground. He touched Verida's shoulder and shouted, he apologizes. Number 1 told him to catch number 98. He is in a hurry. Hearing this, Verida asked, is number 1 chasing number 98? She heard that someone amazing has appeared here lately. It seems that is true. After some time, she came out onto the training ground and asked, did the number 1 man lose? And he should have been pretty high in the rankings. Then, next to her head, another attacker flew to the side. She shielded herself from the gusts of wind. At that moment, another guy approached the protagonist from behind and shouted, he should just shut up and join their squad, idiot. The protagonist turned around abruptly and said, he already said he refuses. This is number 1. You have strength, don't you need brains? How many times do I have to tell him? He knocked the weapon out of the 25th's hands, then grabbed his badge and said, he'll take this. With these words, he tore the badge from his chest and he indignantly shouted, damn. After that, Verida, smiling widely, approached the protagonist and said, she congratulates him. He's now number 25. MC asked, does she know this guy? Verida answered, no, she just saw it. His strange build, the streams of energy, and the number 25 badge in his hand. The protagonist thought for a moment and asked, clairvoyance? Interesting ability. He came closer and thought, she sees the energy inside the body. That's at least the level of the mind's eye. And at her age, the mind's eye is the ability to look into the enemy's soul and read their intentions. It's a weapon that works even against an enemy stronger than you. I see, a powerful ability, worthy of number 2. Then Verida looked at him and asked, hey, why does he hate working in a team so much? He can't handle tomorrow's training match alone, does he know? And then William approached them and said, hey, enough. What is she, an idiot? Did she decide to spill all the information? He stepped on the shoulder of one of the wounded and added, in the end, I had to come myself. Seriously, useless scum who can't even handle the task. The wounded guy screamed loudly, and the protagonist thought, so this is what he is like, the famous number 1. He certainly has charisma. Then the protagonist approached him and said, he was curious about his type. They finally met. Number 1. Can he still fight? William frowned and said with irritation, who the hell is he talking to? The next second, Verida grabbed her stomach and laughed out loud. She wiped a tear from her eye and said, he is quite interesting. She had never seen anyone behave like this with number 1. She spread her arms out to the sides and added, it looks like number 25 has no plans to join anyone. They have training tomorrow. William walked in the opposite direction and said, yeah, he thinks so too. He just came to see what kind of guy he is. Let number 25 not regret provoking him. The protagonist replied, yeah, he thought, information known only to the direct line. Training, the purpose of which is to seize the initiative, influence. So joint training tomorrow. After some time, Bruno asked, are all the cadets assembled? Philip answered, yes, everyone is assembled. However, during the formation of the squads, a very unusual trainee showed up. Bruno told him to report. He replied, well, he said that he would participate in the training alone, without a squad. The senior instructor was surprised. Alone? He had explained to him all the details of the training, hadn't he? He answered, yes. This is a field exercise in the vast Cardenas forest. During the exercise, everything, finding shelter, foraging for food, and hunting, will have to be done independently. They also informed that the squad size is not limited. As expected, the remaining cadets huddled together in groups around the 4 strongest. The largest group is led by number 1, Squad A. Then the second largest group is led by number 2, Squad B. Squad C, consisting of cadets from outside the main branch. The squad led by number 4, which focuses on strategy, and those cadets who couldn't join anywhere gathered under the command of number 98, forming Squad E. And finally, number 25, Leonard the Lone Wolf, Squad F. At that moment, the protagonist thought, he didn't expect the local training ground to be so huge. Since he had such a huge territory at his disposal, he should quickly set up a base. At that moment, Bruno approached him and asked, number 25, is this all his luggage? It looked like he only had a minimum of water and biscuits with him. This might be enough for now. But is he sure? With these words, he stroked his beard. The protagonist, turning around, said, yes, no problem. Isn't the point of this training, from the very beginning, survival and self-sufficiency? He thought. In reality, this is just a competition to take away badges. Then Dylan approached them and asked, Instructor Bruno, can I have a word with number 25? If number 25 doesn't mind, would he like to go with Squad D? MC replied, he should get lost. It's none of his business. He thought, what a cunning idiot, pretending to be worried, but actually planning to abandon him at the first sign of trouble. Dylan laughed and said, honestly, he just doesn't understand. There are at least dozens of people in each squad, and Squad A has over 100. His offer is not bad. Does he know? The protagonist reached for his sword and replied, he doesn't need to understand it. and he doesn't need to explain his reasons. He simply has no desire to join them. Dylan looked at him silently, then said, "Now it's clear why number 1 doesn't like him so much. It's called hatred of one's own kind. Arrogance. He'll regret it. Since words don't help, he'll have to convince them by force, it seems. And this is also for the sake of an advantage in training. So he asks for understanding." He took a few steps forward and added, "Please, he must join their squad." Having approached close enough, he swung his sword for a blow and then shouted in surprise, "What?" He dodged his attack. At that moment, the protagonist appeared behind him, chuckling at his strange footwork. He struck his opponent from behind and thought, even as he raised his sword, he felt no bloodlust or hostility. Had he really already reached the level of an assassin at such a young age? The next second, Dylan fell to the ground and Bruno, placing his hand on the protagonist's shoulder, remarked, "He moves well, number 25. But this is some kind of fake test, so his promotion doesn't count." In the meantime, as the smallest group, he is allowed to go first. The protagonist replied, he understood. He looked at the instructor and thought, the senior instructor, he didn't even sense his presence, and he is simply monstrously strong. Even in his past life, it would have been difficult for him to deal with such monsters gathered here. He then ran in the opposite direction and thought, as expected of the greatest house of swordsmen on the continent, and all of them, at such a young age, had already awakened exceptional talents within themselves. If such talents were emerging one after another, some secret must be revealed to the Cardenas family. But for now, he needed to focus on the training. First, he would find himself a good hiding place. After that, Bruno approached the instructors and asked for a status report. One of them, looking at the system window, said, "Yes, sir." This time, the clash had happened unusually quickly. As soon as Squad A, led by number 1, entered the forest, ignoring the search for a base, they immediately ambushed Squad C. Squad C was completely caught off guard and destroyed in a one-sided attack. Except for number 3, who barely escaped, everyone was wiped out. Bruno said, "Interesting." He knew he was particularly clever. He had counted on a surprise attack from the very beginning. Philippe replied, "Yes." Given the difference in numbers, it was a logical decision. The senior instructor paused, thinking, but he wasn't relying solely on numbers. For a large group like Squad A, securing supply routes becomes a disadvantage the longer the battle drags on. He'd used their numbers at the beginning of training when it's hardest to maintain cohesion, to strike a blow. He defied the common belief that you need to capture the base first and caught them off guard. He was on another level, not just in skill, but in strategy as well. Then he said, "Okay. Now they should report to Squad B and Squad D." The instructors explained, Squads B and D had formed an alliance after learning of Squad C's situation, to defeat their common enemy, the number 1 enemy. Bruno said, "Wise decision. Their reaction time is much faster than that of the previous group of cadets. This looks promising." Then he looked at Colin and asked, "She was in charge of the remaining squads, right? Let's hear it out, Instructor Colin." She walked up to him and replied, "Yes, Instructor Bruno." She looked away and thought, there hasn't been much progress with Squad E since the leader was chosen. But as for number 25 from Squad F, she held out the character references and said, she's not even sure where to start. MC had stopped near the cave shortly before, and turning around said, "Instructor Colin." At that moment, she was sitting on a branch behind a standing tree and thought in surprise, did he just call her? Even among instructors, her ability to conceal her presence was top-notch. He said, "He has a question." She thought she knew it. This guy senses her completely. After that, she descended to the ground and, folding her arms across her chest, said, he must tell her what his question is, number 25. The protagonist turned to the cave and said, as she sees it, it looks like this cave already has an owner, but he would like to use this place as his camp. Was this creature tamed by House Cardenas? He wanted to know if it would be a problem if he wounded or killed it. At that moment, a wolf emerged from the cave. Colin thought, that's right, this wolf is an ancient wolf trained for the Cardenas, relatively harmless. However, it is impossible for one cadet to defeat an ancient wolf. She will intervene if necessary, but first she will see if these are empty words or not. Then she said, no. She does not mind. It's part of the training. If he can defeat this creature, he can use the cave as a camp. She doesn't care. That is, if he can defeat it. At that moment, the wolf bared its fangs viciously and leaped to attack. Pushing off the ground, MC got into a stance, thought and said, good reaction for a pet. Okay, he will be gentle with it. He delivered a few blows and added, this place is too good for a camp to pass up. He apologizes, but this one will have to make room. The wolf then jumped to the side and stuck out its tongue. Then it growled loudly, and the protagonist thought, bloodlust? Had he lost his mind? If he held back and got injured, it would only cause problems for the instructor. Then he adjusted his grip on the sword hilt and, jumping to attack, said, this will hurt a little. He struck the creature's face and then flew away. He noticed the toothy maw rushing after him and said, as if he would let it eat him so easily. He spun around sharply and then kicked the wolf's open mouth. Watching this, Colin thought, he dealt with it in an instant. Did he really not need her help at all? Could this really be the strength of a cadet? After a while, the protagonist stood in front of the wolf and began giving commands. He pointed to the ground and ordered the creature to sit. The wolf obediently followed the command. Then the protagonist ordered him to turn over. The command was also obeyed. After that, he ordered the wolf to extend its paw. He began to stroke the animal's head and looking at Colin, said, Instructor Colin, since he has become so attached to it, will she allow him to take it with him to training? Colin thought, This is not just strength, it is unwavering determination. If someone like him was able to tame an ancient wolf, then she swallowed nervously and said, this is a difficult request. However, taming is undoubtedly the result of his own abilities. She will allow it under certain conditions. She put her hand to her head and added, the wolf is forbidden to participate in combat, but using it for movement or reconnaissance is allowed. MC closed his eyes and replied, this was his plan all along. Colin added, in that case, he must ensure that it does not harm the other cadets. The protagonist said, it looks like it will be quite useful. Well, now the real training begins. And the wolf next to him barked in agreement. Sometime later, the protagonist looked ahead and said, a fork in the road. He suggests splitting up. This might bring something interesting besides food. And now they must go. The next second they scattered in different directions. Meanwhile, William looked at Damien and asked, is that all? The wounded cadet sat near a rock and said in fear, he is a monster. William said, that's a pity. He thought, it's incredible that such trash carries the blood of Cardenas. He is hopeless. But then he patted his pocket full of badges and said, but he has no more room for badges. He can consider himself lucky. If they meet again, he will definitely disqualify him. Damien clenched his teeth and muttered, damn. He thought, even if the whole squad attacks together, they won't be able to touch him. He realized they never had a chance from the start, but at this rate, they were sitting ducks. He clutched his clothes and thought, he was forced to be the leader. What should he do now? Then he stood up and turned around to see the cadets asking, leader, what should they do next? One of them said, they were lucky this time, but if another squad attacks them, they're done for. Another cadet asked, is this really the end? Damien raised his fist and shouted, that's it. They have to gather and look for food. If they can hide and wait for the right moment, maybe they can really turn the tide. The next second, the cadet in front of him asked fearfully, what? Damien turned around and asked, what's with that look? At that moment, a huge bear was standing behind him. He thought, they really will be prey. He doesn't want to die like this. But at that moment, MC jumped on the huge monster from behind and plunged his weapon into the animal's body. Damien covered his face with his hands, and then, noticing the protagonist standing on the body of a huge bear, shouted, him. Number 25? He thought irritably, this cold-blooded idiot. He wants to take even more from them. He saved them. This was their food for several days. They would not have defeated him on their own. He said, he is a monster. Then the protagonist jumped down to them and asked, is he okay? Damien was surprised. Huh? The protagonist repeated, he is asking, is he okay? Damien answered, he is not injured, but before he could finish, MC turned around and said, well, good. Damien shouted, hey, wait, so he didn't come because of their badges? The protagonist turned slightly and replied, it looked dangerous, so he just helped. His goal is not to win. This is training. He can get his own food. He doesn't need badges. Besides, if they want to win, they have to choose who they fight. Damien quietly said, I see. He's the one who quickly reached number 25. He's in his debt. Thanks to him, they avoided elimination. The protagonist said he didn't want it to turn out this way. The next second, everyone present was surprised. What is this? A wolf appeared from behind the bushes, holding Mimi in its jaws. The cadets shouted, wolf. MC said, sit. The wolf obediently sat down, and Damien looked at it in bewilderment. Then the wolf released Mimi from its jaws, and she fell to the ground. The protagonist asked, number 3? Damien thought, number 3 is in such a sorry state, but with this badge, they'll definitely survive. He was terrified of the wolf, but even more terrified of the protagonist. At that moment, the protagonist approached Mimi and thought, the wounds are deep. Just think. It was hard to scratch her. Was this done by a monster, or number 1 or 2? Then he said, number 438. He doesn't want to be eliminated from the tournament, does he? Damien shouted, yes, so what? He means he's pathetic. The protagonist said, then instead of a badge, he'll give him this. This should be enough for food. With these words, he pointed to a huge bear lying on the ground. Damien exclaimed in surprise. Really? Hooray! Okay, that's it. Before he could finish speaking, the protagonist told him not to get hung up on numbers. Damien looked at him in surprise and said, number 25, and it turns out he's a good guy. MC and the wolf passed in the opposite direction, and he thought, it seems he misunderstood him. Sometime later, Mimi woke up on a bed laid out on the floor. She sat up and asked, this? She looked at her bandaged hand and asked, first aid? Who is this? The next second, the protagonist approached her and asked, is she awake? She suddenly jumped up and kicked him, but he blocked her attack with his hand and said, her legs seem to be fine. She doesn't need to waste her energy. It's better to rest. Mimi clenched her fist and shouted, he must give her badge back. MC looked in surprise at the badge hanging on her chest. Then she stopped and said, she's grateful that he saved her, but she can't give him the badge. He replied, he wasn't going to take it away. Then he handed her some meat and told her to sit down and eat. Mimi exclaimed in surprise, may I? The protagonist sat down next to her and told her she shouldn't be shy. There was still plenty of food. He thought, feeding the hungry, it's only natural. Then she started eating, and he asked, so she's from Squad C, right? What happened anyway? Where did those wounds come from? Were they attacked by a monster? Mimi replied that wasn't true. She gritted her teeth and said, as soon as they set up camp, they were wiped out by a surprise attack from Squad A. They suffered a crushing defeat without even putting up a proper fight. She's the commander. How pathetic. She couldn't do anything. The protagonist thought, I see. In a one-on-one duel, she might have had a chance, but a group fight is a completely different matter. They must all be inexperienced. And yet, there is a way to win, preemptive suppression and surprise attacks. It's natural after all, they are youngsters with little tactical knowledge. Then he asked, was it number 1 who injured her right arm? Mimi answered, that's right. Compared to number 2, number 1 is on a completely different level. It can't be helped. The squad was too weak, but the worst thing is that they lost without even being able to put up a fight. MC smiled and thought, even after realizing the difference in strength, she didn't lose her fighting spirit. She'll make an excellent warrior. Then he said, in any case, things are bad. At this rate, it's only a matter of time before squads B and D fall too. Mimi was surprised. Can't they unite? The protagonist replied, the fighting spirit of those who have tasted victory only grows stronger. This advantage outweighs the difference, even the difference in numbers. Besides, even if 2 squads unite, they will not easily defeat an enemy superior in numbers. In such a case, the best move is a surprise attack, but they are certainly prepared for a surprise attack. He thought, seriously, putting so much pressure on the children. Then he said, then they will strike at Squad A's weak point. Mimi asked, Squad A's weak point? The protagonist replied, they will concentrate their attack on number 1. The squad rests on him because their support is strong. They are united and make quick decisions. But should this support collapse, they will turn into an uncontrollable crowd. It seems she wants revenge on number 1. Mimi looked at him and cried out decisively, of course. The protagonist said, in that case, she should trust him. She asked, then should she call him commander? After some time, William said he was too late. The guy was walking behind him and said, they have no need to rush. Time is on their side. If this continues, victory is in the bag. William replied, but first, it looks like everything will be decided soon. He looked back, then clenched his fist and shouted, stand, ready to fight. The others repeated his phrase, and then William reached for his sword and said, knowing your place and hiding is of course good, but since he knows that they have no chance, it would be wiser to surrender. Stop hiding. They have to come out. The cadets began to emerge from the bushes, and one of them said, so he noticed, and this lazy lion cub has more strength than he thought. Verita walked forward and asked, or maybe he looks more like a dog than a lion. William replied, those at the top easily read the thoughts of those below. Her pathetic tricks are simply ridiculous, and yet someone of her stature dares to stand before him. The shame of the House of Cardenas. Verita held her sword in front of her and asked, how long has he loved to show off in front of others so much? Not a dog, more like a peacock. William replied, this is what is called dignity, worthless. The next second, they suddenly leaped into the attack. A girl from the squad shouted, everyone, attack! Destroy the squad! The 5th waved his hand to the side and ordered, everyone, hold the defense. Don't let them break through. A fierce battle began, and William struck his opponent. She flew back and thought, but more importantly, what is his specialty? He is fast, and each of his blows is incredibly heavy. Even when she blocks, her wrists ache. Even her eyes can't read him. Who is he anyway? What kind of ability does this monster have? At that moment, Dylan jumped on William from behind, but he spun around and grabbed his sword, cracking it. William said, and the 2 of them came all this way to show him such pathetic tricks? He released a powerful energy, and Dylan screamed loudly, after which William kneed him in the stomach. At that moment, Verita approached him from behind. She thought, there's a gap. She knew it. It's hard for him to protect his back. She can even see the movement of his muscles. Wait, something's wrong. For someone not so big, he has too few vulnerable spots. It can't be. He was leading up to this from the start. But she stopped abruptly. At that moment, William struck behind him. Verita held her sword in front of her, and he said, at least better than number 4. But she noticed it too late. Even the eyes that see the enemy's movement are imperfect, aren't they? Verita's hands began to shake, and William added, her movements seemed too slow, unlike number 25. The next second, he destroyed her sword too, hitting her shoulder. Verita screamed loudly, falling to her knees. William added, after all her attacks, he expected more. He pointed his sword at her and ordered, she should admit defeat, number 2. She can't defeat him anyway. He is the winner in this training. At that moment, the protagonist approached them and noticed he was jumping to conclusions. In his hand, he was holding the badge he had picked up earlier. Verita looked at him and shouted, he is number 25. MC threw the wounded man aside. William shouted, idiot, what is he doing here? The protagonist replied, nothing special. He just came to return the favor for his squad. William, noticing the wounded man's badge, shouted, number 5? Squad? He shouldn't even have a squad. MC replied, at first, no. Then William started looking around and shouted, huh? The protagonist told him to look. Many cadets ran towards him, preparing to attack. The battle with the first squad began, and the protagonist said, thank God, those whom he looked down on, whom he considered worthless. This is their rebellion. Not long before, Damien said, with such numbers, they are safe. He looked at the huge bear and shouted, guys, with this, they will survive. Hooray, number 25. The others joined in his joy. Then the protagonist said, he apologizes for interrupting their celebration, but Damien shouted, number 25, and even number 3. What came over them? He fearfully approached the bear and shouted, they won't ask them to give everything back, right? The protagonist extended his hand to him and asked, how about an alliance with him? Damien was surprised. What do you mean? They are a weak squad. Even if they unite, they will only slow them down. MC asked, hey, have they forgotten already? He told them not to get hung up on numbers. They are warriors who have undergone official training by the House of Cardenas. Damien asked, so what? The protagonist replied, it means that since they have undergone the same training, the difference in their strength is simply insignificant. Numbers are nothing more than labels. Damien was indignant. What nonsense is he talking about? They can't be the same as him. The protagonist closed his eyes and said, he also has Cardenas blood. He has more than enough talent and potential. It's just that only a few awaken their abilities, and otherwise their combined strength will equalize over time. He should look at him in number 3. Number 3 has become a powerful branch of the family, but she only got here through her own efforts. He is the same. He fought his way from number 380 to number 25 on his own. He folded his arms and added, "Don't the numbers he values so much prove it? There are only a few opponents stronger than him. He can surpass the rest with his own strength." Damien shouted, "He shouldn't make him laugh. They have such numbers precisely because they can't win. Among those of equal strength, they are at the very bottom." MC shouted, "The problem is not only strength. First, they lack self-confidence and courage. Have they ever believed in themselves and challenged their limits? Have they ever dared to see something through to the end? If not, then he will believe in them. Can't win? That is why he, on behalf of Squad F, makes an official offer to Squad E to join them so that together they can defeat number 1. He extended his hand forward again. At this time, Mimi raised her sword and shouted, "Everyone, attack! They can win. For the sake of number 25 who believed in them, they must snatch victory." The cadets ran into battle and shouted, "For the squad, let's do it." And then William shouted, "Number 3, to collude with these nobodies. How can she have the conscience?" Verita asked, "What did he say?" He should listen carefully. She had faced him in battle before, and he had playfully stopped her blow with his hand. His movements were much more polished than his. She had not teamed up with someone inferior to her. She had simply decided to follow someone stronger than her. Besides, his strength doesn't make his squad strong, right? He should see. Her squad is crushing his people. At that moment, Damien and several of the guys joyfully shouted, "Gotcha." And then Verita laughed loudly and, looking at the protagonist, said, "Now I understand, she surrenders. So she also wants to join Squad F." Damien said, "So does he. It's better than losing to someone he can't stand." William clenched his teeth in irritation and shouted, "Number 4, and he too. All of them. They have the blood of House Cardenas in them. Where's their pride?" Dylan asked, "What is he talking about? Is there anyone here without Cardenas blood? Enough of this stubbornness. He should just admit defeat." William told him not to talk nonsense. Number 25. He pointed his sword at him and offered to bet the fate of all the fighters of his squad and Squad F on it. They would duel right here. He would personally show him the difference in their strength. He must not run. The protagonist smiled and said, he had been counting on this all along. In fact, that was what he had wanted to suggest. He reached for his sword, then took a stance and said, "Attack. He will understand everything now." Meanwhile, Bruno watched the proceedings and said, "A duel between the 25th and the 1st. Colin, standing next to him, said this duel was, in fact, the final one. I wonder, will the number 1 win, as everyone expects, or will this newcomer surprise everyone? If they are lucky, they could witness the birth of a new star capable of rising to the rank of commander." At that moment, the cadets' swords crossed. William struck, and the protagonist recoiled. Bruno thought, brutal style and incredible destructive power. It's impressive that the number 25 can withstand these attacks at all. His arms must be terribly strained just from defending himself. But he's just a cadet. He has strength, but his movements are too constrained. At that moment, MC swung his sword and thought, so that's how number 2 fell. An attack from a completely impossible angle. Bruno said, truly impressive. Number 25 had figured out number 1's move. To achieve this in such a short time was astounding. He thought, incredible. A man without a gift could achieve what even number 2 couldn't. At that moment, the protagonist thought he understood it the moment their blades crossed. This guy wields a sword with more than just brute force. Number 1's gift is psychokinesis, an invisible, formless force. Their battle continued, flashes of energy flying in different directions. The blade struck in a trajectory where it would normally be impossible to apply force. An ordinary cadet? No, even a veteran, would lose his guard at a moment like that, thinking that a sword strike from such an angle is impossible. William used psychokinesis to channel power into his arm and blade, unleashing devastating, unconventional might. This power flowed in its purest form, defying common sense. William then slashed forward with his sword, but the protagonist held his sword out to block his attack. He thought, a formidable opponent for his age. William then leaped into attack again and shouted, he had seen through his power. Their swords crossed once again, and he added, and not only that, he had been hiding his true power all this time. Why had he hidden it until now? The protagonist replied, let his sword answer for him. As befits a warrior from the Duchy of the Sword, William smiled and said, well then, though. He directed a blow forward, which flew past the protagonist's head. The protagonist thought, so psychokinesis can be used not only for physical enhancement, but also to direct the blows themselves. No wonder it is called number 1. Then William asked, he understands what this attack means, right? Nothing personal, number 25. MC replied, he is quite cocky. Then he should show him his true power. William concentrated energy around himself and replied, good, he will show him exactly what he asked for. At that moment, the protagonist thought, in this weakened body, he cannot use his former strength. At the same time, he cannot draw unnecessary attention to himself by using some outside force. In this case, he has only one option, he will cut it down. Then he swung his sword in front of him. Their battle continued. He pushed off the ground and then pushed off the tree. William shouted, he is fast. Then how does he do that? He added another blow, cutting the tree in two. MC flipped in the air. At that moment, Verida, who was watching what was happening, put her hand to her wounded shoulder and said, "I see." That's why she couldn't really see anything. Dylan, who was standing next to her, asked, "What do you mean?" Verida replied, "Number 1 used his power to hide the manifestation of his gift." Dylan shouted in surprise, "What? How mean?" Verida added, "And yet number 25 dodges every blow. In fact, the coward here is not number 25, who has been hiding his power all this time." Mimi, who was standing next to them, shouted, "He can't even get within striking distance." "What kind of coward is he?" Dylan asked. "She thinks so?" He thought no, on the contrary. He said, "Number 25 is closing the distance step by step." Meanwhile, one of the instructors asked, "Number 25? In his opinion, he is simply running away from number 1. Bruno said, "He does it deliberately. He creates the appearance so that number 1 does not notice how he is approaching. Number 25 is like a predator, leisurely driving its prey into a corner. He slowly closes the distance." At that moment, William, noticing the approaching protagonist, was surprised. When did he have time? The protagonist concentrated his energy into his weapon and said, "He lost, number 1. He delivered a powerful blow, knocking the weapon out of his opponent's hands and sending William flying backwards. The first man thought, "Impossible. He lost? To some low-ranking upstart. He lost? No, it's not just a defeat, it's death." At that moment, the protagonist's sword rushed towards his head, and William laughed and said, "He lost, number 25. The others joyfully shouted, "He won." Bruno said, "What an unexpected turn of events." He folded his arms across his chest. William said, "He thanks him, number 25. Or should he call him number 1? Thanks to him, he feels such a relief." MC asked, "What do you mean?" William thought, the oppression of his father's upbringing and his own beliefs that he should be the strongest of everyone, all of it disappeared. Then he extended his hand forward and said, "You're welcome. It was a good fight, number 1. The protagonist sighed loudly, then helped him sit up and replied, "Aha." He congratulates him. At that moment, the instructors watching the proceedings were surprised. It was hard to believe that number 1 actually lost. Unbelievable. One of them sighed loudly and said, "Damn, he'll hint now because of this." The man next to him added, "And he really believed in number 1. Bruno said, "This is an unexpected result, but quite fruitful." With that, the field exercise was officially concluded. Dylan said, apart from number 25, he was truly surprised by Squad E. Verida looked at him and said, "She admits, she has no choice but to give them credit. Just think, he teamed up with these nobodies to defeat an entire squad." After that, Bruno thought, number 25 has figured out the true purpose of this field exercise. The result is unexpected, but surprisingly pleasant. Then he looked at Colin and said, "When the excitement subsides, they will prepare to return." Colin replied, "Yes." Bruno added, "We need to contact the main house. We need to inform them that it's time for the blood heir ritual." That same night, MC went to visit his friend the wolf. He petted it and said, "Tomorrow he is leaving here, but he cannot take it with him." The wolf whined and he asked, "Is it sad that he is leaving?" He is sad too. He is sorry that he cannot take it with him, but he promises he will become much stronger and will return here. When the time comes, they will play together again. The wolf happily stuck out his tongue and he left. Finally, he looked at the animal and said, "This one also needs to become strong, so as not to lag behind him on the road. The next time they meet, he will give the wolf a name." And so in the morning they set off. It so happened that they all occupied the same carriage. Leonard asked what they were doing in this carriage. There was no order to get on by numbers. Mimi told him she simply went to fetch the squad leader, and Verida said she was there because the star of the show had boarded the carriage, and Dylan had simply given up and joined them. William declared he simply wanted to talk to the guy who had risen to number 1 in just a month, and the girls asked if he was an intellectual. He took offense at their words and turned to Leonard, saying that he also needed to tell them something. Mimi noticed that he had indeed changed a lot. Did the squad leader hit him too hard on the head? He irritably ordered her to shut up, then told him to listen carefully. Starting tomorrow, they would receive supplies according to their grades and return to training as true descendants of the Cardenas. However, before that, the blood heritage rite would take place. The blood of the Cardenas imbues them with special mana circuits, different from those of ordinary people. The blood heritage rite is a special ceremony designed to awaken the circuits. From now on, their training will focus on them. Dylan now understood why the training center only teaches the basics. Mimi asked what would happen when these circuits awaken, and William answered, "They say it allows one to control mana much more freely." As number 4 said, this is why the use of spiritual fruits and stones is strictly prohibited in the training center. Through the rite of blood legacy, cadets finally complete their basic training and join the ranks of the young dragon knights. But few have heard of them. This is because their existence is not spoken of openly. Officially, there are only 7 knightly orders. The young dragon knights specialize in training through combat practice. They are said to include highly skilled warriors dedicated to raising the next generation. Verida asked, "Since they create a curriculum tailored to each cadet, is this some kind of baptism of fire?" William said that this is why cadets are sorted based on their grades and special circuits. MC asked, "So everyone has different circuits?" He confirmed this and clarified, they are called mana cores, and each one has their own properties and quantity. Mimi added, "There are rumors that dragon blood flows in the veins of the Cardenas, although even they do not know if this is true or not." William said, "The fewer cores the better. and among them, one core is considered the best. This is because with fewer cores, training is much more effective. He undoubtedly has one core. Verita told him to wipe that smug grin from his face and told Leonard not to put too much stock in him. A single core appears once every 10 years, no more often. He remained silent and thought. In his past life, he had undergone similar training. A single source of the soul, divided into 5 elements. He asked if there could be only 5 cores, and Verita answered him. It would be a quintuple core. It has the lowest training efficiency. Each additional core requires twice as many resources. Moreover, it is necessary to constantly maintain a delicate balance between them during training. That is why the effectiveness of training drops so sharply. If we take a single core as a basis, a double core requires 4 times as much effort, a triple core 9 times as much, and a quadruple core 16 times as much, and a quintuple core requires exactly 25 times as much effort. MC said that hearing specific numbers makes you a little scared, and the girl asked they were supposed to cover this in theory, but number 1 just isn't interested in theory, right? He didn't know what to say, and she laughed, exclaiming, "If he's so strong in combat, he doesn't need theory." He turned to the window and thought, in his past life there were similar concepts, so he was somehow coping. But if the cultivation methods he knows work in this world, then this is his chance. He sighed heavily and asked, if someone manages to develop all the cores, wouldn't the quintuple core become the strongest? Dylan answered him, in theory that's true, but obtaining the huge amount of resources for such training is incredibly difficult. Without these resources, there's a limit to what can be achieved through training. William started bragging about how he only had a single core anyway, and Leonard thought, having a large number of cores is actually a huge disadvantage, in which case a double or triple core would be the safest option. If he ended up with a single core, he would stand out too much, and that would cause him a lot of trouble. And in the end, he ended up with a spot core. To think that the heavens had gifted him with a talent for the sword, but not with a talent for blood. Why did he have to stand out in a way he didn't want to? He walked out of the office, ruffling his hair in frustration, and suddenly felt a stream of energy behind him. He immediately jumped to the side, dodging the blow, and the man said contentedly that it was impressive. To see that sword at such a young age, everything was as the rumors said. The commander of the young dragon knights, Fabian, approached him, and MC introduced himself to him, saying that he was the former number 381. Fabian said, "This is truly magnificent for such a young age." He had achieved such perfection without even using chi. He asked, isn't martial arts tempered in the heart and honed by the body? As far as he understood, the perfection of an art doesn't depend on the presence or absence of chi. Fabian was surprised at first, but then laughed out loud and said, perhaps the rumors were somewhat exaggerated. He liked his attitude. He slapped his armor and introduced himself, saying, I swear by my name and position that I recognize him as a candidate for a special rank and guarantee that he will be treated accordingly. His subordinate asked in surprise, is he serious? After all, it had just been confirmed at the Blood Heritage ritual that he had 5 cores. He exclaimed in response that the number of cores didn't matter. Great things aren't accomplished by dwelling on trifles. If someone has talent, they must invest everything in it. Let him ignore what others say. The man only sighed heavily, gave Leonard a spatial bag, and said that he was worthy of a special rank. This bag is filled to the brim, so let him use whatever he needs. Fabian said that as a special privilege, he gives him the right to choose. These doors lead to different training grounds. Usually, they assign a training ground based on ability, but he gives him the right to choose. MC looked around and asked where he could find training resources that suit his current ability. The man smiled and patted him on the shoulder and remarked, that's an excellent question. He who is unable to walk the path of slaughter will surely be surpassed. He is not a true martial artist. In that case, he will go to Carabagos Island, the most remote place in the entire empire. It is such a harsh place that even seasoned knights have broken there. The expression, wild wilderness, describes this island perfectly. What's worse, there are dangerous zones there comparable to the demon world. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Leonard thanked him and walked to the door, thinking, the only reason why training with the 5 core is so difficult and achieving the highest superpowers seems impossible is because no one knows the correct method for cultivation. The 5 elements are a single, holistic flow and a separate world. If he can elevate them all, this is the perfect opportunity to surpass his past self. Fabian wished him luck. He opened the doors and walked through the portal, finding himself on Carabagos Island. Suddenly, a knight's voice sounded behind him, praising him for making it here. So this is the cadet everyone's talking about? MC hadn't heard a single step from him, so he was definitely a high-level master, and he bowed to him and introduced himself. The man said his name was Bradley. He was in charge of this island and served as a senior knight in the Basilisk, the #1 squad of the young dragon knights. He suggested that he move on for now. He hasn't met the others yet, has he? Everyone here is a knight apprentice. They may be equal in status, but he should at least try to show respect to his elders. Leonard mentally noted that this sounded unnecessary. The man also told him not to be afraid, even if he encountered them. There were rules that forbade them from touching first years. From today on, he would spend 6 months under his protection. The remaining 6 months were his training period. After that, he would deal with his own problems. Usually, food, clothing, and shelter were not his concern, but he heard he was getting special treatment, so he would at least provide him with a place to sleep. He led him to the door and told him to settle in this room. He had already left everything he needed there. Everything else was on him. In theory, with spiritual stones, he could achieve almost anything, so let him figure it out himself. MC thanked him for his help and he said, "That's all with the basics. Does he have any questions?" He asked what the difference was between the protection period and the training period, and he answered him, "The difference is small. Everything is quite simple. During the protection period, he will help him in everything, and during the training period, he will only make sure that others do not touch him." He asked if killing or causing grievous bodily harm is prohibited. He answered that killing is strictly prohibited, and Leonard asked one last question. Could he evaluate the training resources given to him? He agreed and showed him the spatial bag. Bradley immediately counted 3,000 low-grade spiritual stones and 100 spiritual elixirs of each attribute. He examined everything carefully and thought, even for the number 1, this is an absurd amount. This guy, Leonard, must be from a collateral family. Even direct heirs rarely receive so much. The commander must have taken a liking to him. MC asked what spiritual stones were, and he explained to him that they were ore infused with mana. Let him simply absorb them to gradually expand his mana point. With this amount, a single core person will reach the 10th stage, and a person with 5 cores will reach the 5th. He asked, "What is a stage? Is it something like a level?" Bradley decided to explain everything to him in detail. First, he would teach him how to distinguish between the levels of development of practitioners. Martial arts in this world are divided into 5 great realms and 10 minor realms. Each great realm includes 10 minor realms. With each realm overcome, you become one step closer to becoming a true master. The realm of body tempering is the first. In it, you expand the point of mana using internal mana. The second realm is the release of power outward, the realm of external power. This realm is achieved by training the mana purified in the first realm until it can take the form of an aura. And the third realm is the forging of one's own individuality. This is called the realm of transcendence. Since this is unique to everyone, it is difficult to define. The fourth is the realm of the demigods. This is a state in which the practitioner transcends the mind and embodies their inner image in matter. And fifth, the realm where man transcends his nature and attains divinity, the realm of divine transformation. However, no one except their ancestor, Cardenas, has ever reached this realm. Blasphemous fools claim this is just a fairy tale invented by Cardenas. If their ancestor hadn't slain the evil dragon, those ungrateful wretches would have lived their entire lives in slavery. That's all the explanation, and now they will begin the real training. The first is mana cultivation. Let him use the resources given to him to strengthen his body and expand his mana point. The training is simple. He only needs to absorb chi from the spiritual stones. From there, he can handle the rest on his own. After wishing him luck, the man left, leaving the boy perplexed. He glanced at the spiritual stones and thought, so he needs to absorb mana? There's plenty of it here. He could train well just by walking around and absorbing it. So, absorption itself is difficult? If so, then he was lucky. He had already mastered this to perfection in his past life. Time passed, he finally finished, and how quickly it all went amazed him, even given his experience from his past life. Reaching the 3rd stage in just a few hours. At this rate, he could reach the 5th stage in a day. Thanks to his memories from his past life, this training seems ridiculously simple to him. 5 cores are essentially the same as 5 hearts in his past life, and such absorption was basic training back then. On the other hand, if he finished in a day, it would definitely seem suspicious. Maybe he should go train in the mountains for a couple of days? He immediately dismissed the idea. The commander already considered him a genius of the generation. If he applied the techniques from his past life now, he would be able to explain everything plausibly. It would be foolish not to take advantage of such a treasure. Time passed, and 3 guys approached his house and started discussing him. He truly was unique. He had been sitting there for a month and a half. Maybe he plans to sit there until he reaches at least the 5th stage. After all, if you want to survive here, that's the bare minimum. The guy sighed heavily and said it pained him to hear this, and his friend suggested they go fishing. They had no time to worry about newcomers. If they didn't catch anything today or tomorrow, they'd have to spend their spirit stones. They left, teasing each other, and Leonard finally emerged from his seclusion. After breathing in the fresh air, he decided to go straight to Sir Bradley the next morning and ask him for a real sword. When he came to him with this request, he asked why he needed it, and Sir Bradley said he decided it was time to get used to a real blade, not a wooden one. Bradley noted that he had gotten too cocky about himself as soon as he became stronger, and then he decided to prove his abilities by smashing a stone with his fist. Bradley was surprised by this and said, "The quintuple core reached the 3rd stage in just a month. The growth is truly impressive, but he must not forget his place." He pounced on Leonard, which greatly frightened the latter, because he understood that in his current state, he would not be able to resist him. But the instructor did not intend to hit him. He only lightly hit him on the head with the sheathed sword, then gave it to him and advised him not to do anything stupid. MC thanked him, and Bradley said that if he lost the sword, he would pay with spiritual stones, and he asked, "What if this one breaks?" He smirked and answered that in that case, he would pay with them too. He said it would be easy, and then the man left, telling him to try his best. Now that Leonard has the sword, it's time for him to go to the Forest of Remains, the abode of monsters. The hobgoblins inhabited the area. MC quickly dispatched one of them, but his fellow hobgoblins immediately smelled blood and realized someone was there. Leonard revealed his presence and said, no matter how clean the cut, the smell of blood can never be hidden. He sped up, lunged, and quickly finished off the goblins and took the reward. When monsters die, the mana in their bodies is released as spirit stones. In total, he'd gotten about 100 low-grade spirit stones in one day, which wasn't bad. But he wouldn't get any stronger if he stayed in the Remnant Forest. The Remnant Forest, as the name suggests, is home to monsters excluded from the food chain. Only the small fry of E rank are found here. From the depths of the forest he smelled a scent distinct from the others. It must be a gnoll. He gripped his sword tighter as an unknown creature began circling around him, disappearing into the darkness. The fact that it doesn't even try to hide its presence means it doesn't see him as prey at all. It seems he's being underestimated. He assumed a fighting stance and told the creature to attack. It obeyed him and immediately rushed into battle. And finally, he saw who was hiding in the darkness. The gnoll swung its axe with all its might and let out a howl, but MC managed to defend itself and told the worthless thing to stop growling. The gnoll stuck out its tongue and howled again, and Leonard rubbed his sore wrist and thought, such immense power, and he only parried its attack. In that case, he'll have to dodge all attacks. That goes against his training. He pounced on the gnoll, noticed how its veins bulged, and realized that this wasn't the strength of a normal gnoll. A normal goblin is E1 rank, and when evolving into a hobgoblin, it increases to E2. A normal gnoll, rank D1, usually a monster's awakening, is limited to one evolution, but this creature is definitely not D2, which means it's an adgnoll, rank D3, and he will have to kill it. This will be his first proper training in a long time. He gave the monster a murderous glare which scared him greatly and immediately swung his axe. Then MC jumped and, pushing off the weapon, exclaimed, as if such a clumsy attack could touch him. He struck right at the gnoll's neck and sparks flew everywhere. His skin was so tough. The gnoll struck back and his axe sank into the ground, and he quickly dodged and slipped under the gnoll's hands, saying, as he thought, he's just a beast with brute strength. Now is his chance. While his axe is stuck, if regular sword strikes don't help, he will try something else. He turned around, swung, and said that he had strong bones and muscles, but that would not protect him, and hit him with the tip under the jaw, and it went right through. After such a blow, the monster died, and he obtained a mid-grade spiritual stone from it, which is worth hundreds of low-grade stones. If such creatures live here, his internal energy will quickly increase, which is why none of the other apprentice knights come near this place. He also had no more business here, so he went to his hut. After finishing his meditation, he thought that everything was going better than he expected. He had already reached level 10 of the body tempering stage. For someone like him, going through 10 stages in just a few months would obviously cause problems. Isn't there a way to gather resources without attracting so much attention? He heard a noise outside. Those 3 guys came to his hut again, and one of them, Hayden, said irritably, it's been 3 months already, and they haven't seen any signs of him coming or going. Do they really need to check on him every day? His friend called him an idiot. They should be the first people he meets. In a noble family like the Cardenas swordsman's house, connections are the strongest weapon. He was given a separate house, which is worth more than 10 houses with a little extra space, and on top of everything else, he is number 1. They say that even the captain showed special interest in him, which is why he said that they should at least go say hello. He pushed Hayden towards his hut, and he exclaimed irritably that he understood everything. Let him stop pushing. He went to the door and loudly called out to the newbie, asking if he was alive in there. If he didn't eat right, the training would lead to nothing. He put a bucket of fish next to the door and asked, he didn't die in there, did he? He leaned against the door and listened, and Leonard meanwhile hid and thought, he turned out to be a much better elder than he thought. That's how he looked after him. He saw his face even if only through a crack. If he showed the results of his training, it would arouse suspicion, but no one would suspect an elder who had been on this island for 10 years. They left, and he continued to meditate, and he decided to try something he had done a long time ago. He used the art of inversion, a skill that allows you to change your appearance by manipulating the veins and muscles of your face. After becoming the Sword Emperor, he had no reason to hide his true identity, and who would have thought that he would have to use it simply to hide his power? Having finished changing his face, he was confident that they would not suspect a thing. He chose Hayden as a disguise. 3 months later, in the swamp of Bone Mountain, he ran down the mountain to avoid monsters. The ironclad rule of survival he learned here was to always conceal his presence. Every creature in this place possesses poison and some ability to camouflage, so he must act with extreme caution. If he lets his guard down even for a moment, he will become prey to the lizardmen lurking in the swamp. Ahead was a thick body of water teeming with monsters. He climbed a tree and drew his sword, thinking, the average rank of a lizardman is C. This makes them far more formidable than that anomaly Adnor. Besides, they travel in packs, so he should finish everything with one blow. Having chosen a target, he jumped down from the tree and struck the monster in the head. He pulled the sword from this one's skull and turned around, asking in confusion, did he make too much noise? It seemed the leader had woken up. The lizardman with a spear pounced on him and hissed, and he quickly jumped up and struck, saying that it was fast, but this one's movements were too primitive. He didn't have time to toy with a creature that knew nothing about fencing. Having killed the monster, he received another reward. Now he had about 1,500 medium spiritual stones. It was time for him to move on to the next stage and change locations. The mana in 1,500 medium spirit stones is more than enough to immediately advance to the next stage. However, the process of breaking through the boundary is too powerful. He's currently at the 10th stage of the body tempering level, pretending to be Hayden to avoid suspicion. But if he breaks through here on Carabagos Island, it will be nearly impossible to hide. So he went in search of shelter that could contain the mana explosion. He needed at least a roof over his head. He noticed a small field of spiritual herb seedlings at the foot of the cliff, which absorb mana better than spirit stones, and a troll cultivating them and guarding his cave. The troll sensed something, and MC crouched down to watch him. Knowing something was about to happen, the troll became wary, and a werewolf ran out of the forest and attacked. The troll stamped his foot, erecting a barrier around himself. The werewolf couldn't strike and retreated, and Leonard wondered if they were dividing the area. He hurled lightning and shook the very earth. Could monsters of such a level really command the forces of nature? The troll manipulated tens of tons of earth and stones so freely, even he, with his current strength, would have had a hard time, and the other dodged with the speed of lightning. They collided with each other in another attack. MC realized this fight would last a long time and decided to explore the cave while he had the chance. Since a troll of such a level was guarding this place, there could be an incredible treasure inside. As soon as he entered, the sounds outside disappeared. This was the perfect place for a breakthrough. In the very center of the cave stood a glowing tree, and around it were planted spirit herbs. Leonard was surprised that the troll actually grew them and quickly realized something was wrong. With so many of them, he should have sensed them from outside, but he didn't detect anything. He fired lightning bolts at the ceiling. They crashed against the barrier, and he smirked, realizing what was hiding them. He looked around and noticed that this place was rather strange. What the hell was this golden tree? He had heard of intermediate spiritual herbs, but for an entire tree to exist? That was the highest rank. No, maybe even higher. It was unlikely that that troll understood the true value of this. He would have gladly started a breakthrough right then and there, but it seemed he had company. The whole time, the wounded troll was standing behind him. He quickly jumped up and ran to the exit, thinking, this place completely blocks mana and sound, so he didn't feel it at all. Luckily, his wounds hadn't healed yet. The troll swung its hand, throwing a bunch of stones at him. He dodged, and the stones barricaded the exit. But that was just what MC wanted. He turned around and faced the troll and accepted the fight. From outside the cave, you could barely hear what was happening inside. Right now, the troll was throwing stones, and Leonard was running away. He clicked his tongue in annoyance and thought, after just a couple of movements, he realized that he couldn't win with just speed. He didn't expect the troll to start throwing stones at him. If even one hit, he'd be done for. He was smarter than he thought. In that case, he decided to change tactics and rush towards the troll to finish it all off with one blow. He swung his sword, cutting off one of its fangs, turned around to deliver another blow, but he completely didn't expect the troll to also wield fire. He struck with a fiery fist with all his might. Fortunately, MC managed to dodge, and now he understood why he survived the fight with the werewolf. He had two elements from the very beginning. The troll growled, stomped his foot, summoning stones as well. And Leonard thought that simply closing the distance wouldn't help here. If he touched that heat, he would melt in an instant. He needed to wait for the right moment and finish him off with one blow. As soon as he took a wide step forward, that was his chance. He continued to dodge, waiting for the right moment, and then he finally took a step and he immediately rushed to attack. He jumped on his knee and said, "This feeling brings back memories. This is the end." He hit him under the jaw, he fell off a small ledge, and MC darted to the wall of the cave, pushed off and pounced on the troll, saying that it was too late. He pierced his chest with his sword. It was immediately clear that he was finished, but he also hit the spiritual stone hidden in his body. Because of this, the stone exploded, the fire reached the spiritual grass and began to intensify. Leonard covered himself with his hands and thought that this was bad. If it exploded at such a distance, it would be bad for him. A new explosion threw him back. He hit a tree trunk with great force and coughed up blood. A blow like that should have broken every bone, and this flame would burn the entire cave to the ground in less than 5 minutes. There was nowhere to wait for help in a cave like this, which meant that whatever happened here would have no effect. He pulled out all the spiritual stones. They said that if he raised his spiritual level, his body would heal. He had no time to hesitate. He had to do it. He smashed the first spiritual stone and felt the mana from the spiritual herbs flow into his damaged magical channels. 1,500 spiritual stones were healing his body. But that wasn't enough. He needed to consume all the spiritual herbs here. He began devouring the herbs, and finally, he was ready and sat down to meditate. Mana that surpassed all his limits was seething within him, and all the cores were spinning simultaneously. He felt all this energy merging together like a new heart. His body and mana are being restored. He has broken through to a new level. But why isn't the process stopping? He has already surpassed the power available to humans. The streams of mana swirling around him took the form of a dragon, and then everything went silent. The mana in his quintuple core not only merged, but his level jumped immediately to the 3rd stage of the external power realm. Considering that the seniors can't get out of the 2nd stage, this will shake up the whole of Cardenas. His wounds have completely healed, and his mana is flowing faster than ever. Just one level up gave such a boost, but how did he survive such a powerful explosion in a confined space? He no longer feels that unbearable heat. The previously brightly shining tree has extinguished, leaving behind only a single fruit. MC plucked it and thought, the enormous spiritual energy it released must have protected him and the cave from that pillar of fire. This fruit fits perfectly in his hand. It absorbed all that mana, he put it in his bag, and as a parting word, told the tree that he would plant this seed for this reason. In a way, it saved his life. After that, he ran to the exit, thinking that if he was late, they would suspect something. He easily broke through the stone blockage and got out of the cave. Now he realized that he had become too strong and had momentarily lost control of his power. He hoped this wouldn't cause problems. Soon, his hut became visible ahead. He stopped and thought that he had arrived on time. He would be uncomfortable explaining himself if the elders saw him like this. First, he needed to get himself together. For the past 3 months, he had been sparring with them every day at this time. When they arrived again, Hayden noticed that the door was open, and his friend Ian immediately ran up to Leonard and excitedly greeted him, saying that he could call him Elder. MC nodded, greeting him back, and said, actually, he's hit a dead end in his sword training. Would he agree to spar with him? This sudden request confused Ian, who said he wouldn't mind. Was he sure? He told him he'd be grateful for the opportunity to learn, and Ian, looking proud and satisfied, smoothed his hair and said, if he says so, he can't refuse. Hayden called out to him discontentedly, and he told Leonard to follow him. He'll show him what it means to be a knight of Cardenas. That's how MC seized the initiative and landed the first blow, which sent the guy flying, and he didn't even realize at first what had happened. After sparring with Ian, he defeated his friend Gale, but the fight with Hayden lasted longer. To confuse him, he began to circle around him, and Hayden nervously clenched his teeth and asked, is this the power of someone who just left the training camp? He noticed the glint of a blade before his eyes, immediately blocked the blow, and his hand became covered in flames. Ian sternly called out to him and exclaimed, why the hell is he using mana? Hayden was scared. It was obvious he didn't do it on purpose. He immediately rushed worriedly to Leonard, asking if he was okay, and apologized to him. He accidentally used a defensive technique. MC looked at his burned palm and thought, can a simple mana block cause damage? It seems that in this world, fencing alone is not enough. At first, he just wanted to repay him for the disguise with a few fencing tips, but now it seems he himself has something to learn. He smiled, and Hayden asked why he is not angry. He said with a smile that he is looking forward to continuing their sparring, because sparring with the elders will definitely be fun. Hayden was surprised, and Ian promised to come every evening. Currently, Ian came to Leonard this morning and told him that there would be no sparring today. He came out of the hut and asked what happened. He didn't see the others either. He also noticed that he was dressed differently today. Could he be going on a combat mission? Ian asked if he heard that loud explosion near the Bone Mountain swamps. It was complete chaos there now, so he hurried to tell him. Thank goodness he didn't suspect anything and continued his story. A werewolf and a troll, who had reached the level of a true demon, ended up fighting over territory in the swamps. Apparently, the troll was burned alive, and the werewolf was skinned. There must have been a real massacre. Now that the two bosses are gone, all sorts of small fry are gathering near the Bone Mountain swamps. As far as he can see, they are heading out to clean up as part of their nightly training. He's not ready for a real fight yet, so let him stay here and rest. He also brought him something. He poured several blades out of his bag and asked, he broke a lot of swords during sparring, right? They're nothing special, but he brought him 5 decent swords. MC even felt awkward and thanked him, and he told him with a smile not to forget him when he becomes a big man, and let him not go outside today. Almost the entire knightly order guarding this island is training at the swamps of Bone Mountain. Well, nothing will probably happen to him, but fencing alone won't always save him, so let him be careful. Leonard thanked him for his concern. He never thought that he would cause such chaos that it would alarm the entire knightly order. If he acts carelessly, everything could end badly. But this is his chance, while everyone is distracted. Putting on his cloak, he ran into the forest. He can afford to act a little more boldly. However, using the art of disguise today is too risky. Now that he knows where the elders are, running into someone disguised as Hayden will only create more problems. It's disgusting. But he'll just put on the werewolf's skin. Since almost everyone is gathered in one place, he can move freely. This is a chance he can't miss. He climbed a high cliff, looked around, and thought that they were on the opposite side from the training grounds. This is the perfect opportunity to explore the Owl Plains. When he reached the place, he realized that it was too quiet. He feels the intent to kill this creature pierce through him, but why doesn't it attack? He doesn't know if it's being cautious or just afraid. But this is a waste of time. Finally, the creature appeared. It flew at him from above and stopped. And MC took off his hood and asked, so this owlbear will be the first? For his level, this is just what is needed to test his strength. Soon, unknown people landed on the island. Their leader, the fifth shadow, Curtis, said, there are only 32 people in the crew. 2 are missing. It seems they did not catch the air current and fell into the sea. What a tragedy. They gave their lives for their homeland, Curtis. Doesn't the heavens understand? They cannot allow their comrades to die in vain. They must complete this task. All the members of the Dark Knight Order punched the air, praising Curtis, and the fifth shadow told them to capture the apprentice knights of the Cardenas house alive and uncover the secret of their cursed blood. No mercy, even if they are children. They are the root of all evil. The knights scattered and time passed. The knight fled through the wasteland. He lost his comrades. He wondered, how many A-rank monsters are there? Without a captain, they can't even fight properly. What were the demons from House Cardenas doing on this island? But since he'd stepped onto this plane, there hadn't been any dangerous monsters. Luckily, the further he went, the weaker the monsters became. In other words, once he reached the center, the mission would be easier. He saw the silhouette of an owlbear ahead and decided to attack. But just as he was about to strike, he noticed the creature's gaze wandering into space and realized it was already dead. Could someone really have been here? He looked around for a clue, saw several more monster bodies, and became wary. A stone flew at him, and he immediately smashed it with his sword and asked who he was. Leonard landed right next to him and said that was what he wanted to ask. The knight was confused, and MC hit him in the neck, knocking him out of breath, and asked again who he was. The man couldn't answer because he was coughing so much, so he used mana and said, since he wasn't talking, he'd find out who he was himself. The man was scared. He imbued the sword with power and swung it, and he stepped back and noticed that his sword was thirsty for blood, which meant it was hitting at full force. He swung his sword several times in a row, parrying his blows, which surprised him greatly, and then rushed towards him and struck. He immediately felt the sword glancing, as if something had stopped it. The knight was protected by a magical artifact, immediately after which he struck several blows in response and thought, he never imagined that he would have to use this against the brat, but if he didn't, he himself would be in danger. Leonard thought, was there something hidden in his sword? A cunning and ruthless killer blade, like a poisonous snake. But his style was too rough. He saw through all his movements. He approached him and struck, which he blocked, and asked, he had only killed weaklings until now, right? The knight chuckled nervously. He threw the chains on his sword and thought, he didn't want to say this, but if he sealed his sword, he wouldn't lose. But what he did amazed him. He threw the sword away and attacked him with his fists, asking, does he think that sealing his sword is enough, and he won't be able to fight back? What a childish assumption. He hit him in the face with all his might, even throwing him back, and he still couldn't believe it. Such determination at his age. Has he already awakened? After that, MC tied him to a tree and asked if he already understood his situation. He doubts that his mana or his body will help him now. His life is in his hands. The knight called him a coward through clenched teeth and shouted that he is a filthy demon from the house of Cardenas. He defiled his sword with his vile power. He trampled his pride, and for this, he will never forgive him. Leonard was speechless for a second. He pointed to his equipment and asked what he was even talking about. He himself used a magical artifact, and after that, he calls him a coward? He is so pathetic. The man ordered him to shut up. In a fight with the spawn of the house of Cardenas, any means are fair. He will bring out his vile power. Seeing how he clenched his fist, he told him to finally kill him, to which he replied, it is up to him to decide whether to live or die. He does not even have the right to beg for death. The man called him a brat with impure blood and declared that he would die, but would not say a word. And he asked, is he talking about the blood of the house of Cardenas? The man shouted that he could not wash away the sin that flows in his veins. Since this clan raised him, he should know. He is not a man. If he were, he would not have such monstrous strength, and people with special abilities would not constantly appear in his line. MC said, it seems he knows a lot. Now he will test how much he really knows. The knight exclaimed, if there is no secret in their lineage, then why does no one from their family leave the country? If they had a legitimate ancestor, there would be no need to hide. Leonard paused for a moment, then asked if they were truly so envious of the Cardenas' power and prosperity. So much so that they were willing to cast aside knightly honor and kidnap a child. If he had intended to fight honorably from the start, he wouldn't have needed these childish shackles. Even if they revealed the Cardenas' secrets, nothing would change for them. They were third-class outcasts, without honor or strength. And how could he appear before his ancestors in such a pitiful state? The knight angrily called him a brat. How dare he insult the name Curtis? He asked, so he was from Curtis? The man stared at him in confusion and asked, did he already know? MC immediately hit him with a stream of mana and said, when the mind is in turmoil, you forget even the obvious. The knight cursed, realizing his mistake, and Leonard said that he had unleashed his mana channels, so he would soon die. But before that, he would tell him everything he knew. Curtis is a small kingdom in the western part of the continent, which several centuries ago was considered a holy land for knights. That was until Cardenas appeared. The knights of the kingdom of Curtis suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the Red Dragon Knights of Cardenas. After this single defeat, the world forgot about Curtis, and Cardenas became a holy land for knights. After his story, MC asked, to regain their former glory, they decided to learn about Cardenas and attack them to uncover the secret of their bloodline. In a sense, their interests coincide. But the main problem is that someone of an incredible level has already landed on this island. First, he needs to report everything to Sir Bradley. He drew his sword, enveloped it in mana, and thought, the enemy is the Shadow Knights of Curtis. Most of the knights on this island are apprentices, so it is too dangerous. He turned to the knight and asked, he says he is the 30th shadow, right? It was his turn. He struck, but the knight's body was only wounded, and the tree trunk was cut off. He thought there was no time for detailed explanations. It was enough to leave traces indicating the presence of a swordmaster on the island. He glanced at his sparkling blade. As he thought it was just an imitation, he decided to take the magical items, since the dead man certainly wouldn't object, and then he took his body and carried it into the forest. Sometime later, at the knight's temporary camp, Ian sighed with relief, glad for a free moment, and Hayden said, they hadn't really rested, since they were suddenly raised on alert. Ian hoped that nothing more would happen, but it was not to be. They noticed a body near a tree and immediately ran to call Sir Bradley. When he arrived, he carefully examined the body and said that it was an aura blade, a technique that only those who have reached the level of a swordmaster can use in real combat. It seems the note is telling the truth. 2 sheets of paper were found with the body. They contained a confession written out of guilt for attacking children. Bradley thought, these are the Shadow Knights of Curtis, many experts and their leader, a master of the transcendental level. They are heading towards the center of the residential quarters of the knight apprentices. Perhaps they can hold them off if they gather all the apprentices, but the problem is their leader. He ordered Ian to raise the alarm throughout the island. This is an emergency. Very soon, all the knights gathered in one place, and Leonard thought, it seems Bradley understood his plan. As soon as everyone was in place, Bradley said, this is not a drill. Enemies have infiltrated Carabagos Island. Their combat power is enormous. The enemy force consists of 30 people who have surpassed the 8th level of external strength. Among them, there is one knight who has reached the transcendental level of a swordmaster. They all know perfectly well what someone who has reached the transcendental level is capable of, right? Just let them imagine Captain Fabian of the Young Dragon Knights. Even if they consider them walking disasters, numbers don't matter against them. And now they have a choice. They activate the dimensional gate and disappear right now, leaving the island to wait for reinforcements from the family, or they stay here and meet the enemy face to face. MC thought that for these kids, a real fight is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Well, if they survive, of course, no one will judge them, even if they decide to retreat. The guy next to him decisively clenched his fist and declared his desire to fight. Ian, Hayden, and Gale also chose to fight, and Leonard thought, it's not easy to choose battle in the face of an imminent threat. A knight is a knight. He underestimated them. All the students raised their swords, showing they were ready for battle, which Bradley was very happy about. He smiled and said that he respected their choice. However, a fight with a master of the ultimate level is a different matter entirely. He will request reinforcements from Captain Fabian. While they were preparing for battle, MC was already on his way to the hut and thought, the hole in the ground he dug next to his bed, who would have thought it would come in handy so soon? He was evacuated because he was still under protection, but this only plays into his hands. He will take the chance and inspect the magic items he received. Most of them are broken, but this magic ring is still usable. He tried to use acceleration mana, but his heart suddenly skipped a beat, and the magic stone on the ring cracked. He thought that his heart was blocking external mana, in which case he couldn't use any of these magic items. The only useful thing was the Shadow Knight's signaling device. He had already studied the instructions from the 30th Shadow, so there would be no problem. If he finds an enemy, he will attack suddenly, and if they find him, he will use them as bait. He ran into the forest and thought that the only one he had to fear was the Swordmaster. He wouldn't let him have his way. Very soon, he was already in that wasteland. He intercepted a signal requesting reinforcements. If they were asking for help, it meant they hadn't yet reached the level of transcendence. They shouldn't have realized yet that he was an enemy. He would attack while they were panicking and destroy them all. Until then, his comrades had to hold out. Meanwhile, in the Lion Gorge, the Shadow Knights were fighting the Manticore. The Manticore was clearly stronger and was pushing them back. One of the knights cursed and shouted, "What's wrong with this island? They would never defeat such a monster." The Manticore turned its back on them and swung its tails, throwing the knights onto the sharp rocks, and one of them shouted that the mission was most important, that they should not fight, but run. His comrade reported that one of their own was coming towards them, an A-rank creature. But that was one thing. If reinforcements arrived, they would have a chance to kill it. The man turned around and asked excitedly. By reinforcements he meant that guy? Right in front of his eyes, Leonard killed several members of their squad, and the man asked suspiciously, how did he know how to use it? MC answered him. It was worth angering them a little, and they blurted out everything. This only proves how weak their organization is. They immediately rushed towards him in rage, and he asked, are they letting their emotions blind them? The man told him to shut up. He will avenge his comrades. His partner, who was running with him, was hit and fell dead. which scared him, and Leonard reminded him that he was not only fighting him. The knight turned to the manticore, it immediately attacked, and he could not even do anything. The body of a lion, the tail of a snake, and the face of a goblin or troll, an A-rank monster, a manticore. He said he'd heard that a manticore's strength was determined by the number of its heads, but to think this one also had a human face. The manticore called him a human, and he was surprised that the monster spoke human language, and it said, if he fights, it will die. MC was impressed that it was able to accurately assess the opponent's strength, and the monster continued, it will not die without a fight. If it buys enough time, he will come. He asked who it was talking about, and the manticore only said that it was incredibly strong. Leonard glanced at the Shadow Knight's body and wondered, is he their leader? I think they called him the fifth shadow. Compared to the combined strength of everyone who landed on this island, he alone is far more dangerous. A master swordsman, at his current level, he has no chance against it. If this creature is telling the truth, staying here is dangerous, but he asked why he should trust the monster, and the manticore suddenly approached him, saying, if he is not afraid of death, let him attack. He put away his sword and asked, is the monster trying to play tough guy? This time, he will let it go, but there will be no next time. He was about to leave, but suddenly the manticore called him a fool and screamed loudly. MC knew it would attack. He immediately drew his sword and threw it at the monster's head, piercing its eye. The manticore realized that he was expecting an attack and became very angry. Sharp bone tails headed for Leonard. He quickly got rid of them, and with the second blade stabbed him in the lungs, and the third pierced his heart. The manticore was finished. He shouldn't linger here. Suddenly the crystal glowed. He immediately realized that their leader had arrived, tore the pendant from his neck, and ran away. Soon the fifth shadow appeared. He quickly approached the pendant, picked it up, and wondered if he was too late. If he had arrived a little earlier, they would have achieved their great goal together. Sensing someone's presence, he immediately turned around and swung his blade. His aura scattered around the area. Fortunately, MC was not affected. He carefully peeked out from behind cover and wondered if he could sense him from such a distance. At this rate, he would be drawn into this too. He went underground to hide, never thinking that his digging skill would actually come in handy. He just needed to stay away from him and leave. Meanwhile, the fifth shadow looked around and wondered if he was imagining it, but it was not like him. The failure of his plan dulled his senses more than he thought. He took a last look at the swords of his fallen comrades and told them to rest in peace. He would not let their deaths be in vain. Their goal had already been accomplished. Time passed. Leonard dug into the forest and was finally able to crawl out from underground, finding himself right on the battlefield. Hearing the noise, a wounded knight asked who was there. MC looked at him and thought, it's too late for him. Realizing that he was an apprentice, he said, as he sees it, he doesn't have much time left. Let him tell the other knights that a single swordmaster destroyed 45 mid-ranking knights in the blink of an eye, and 8 squires from this party were kidnapped. MC looked around and thought, they have already been taken. How did they get past the wild dragon horses alone? Their goal is to get the test subjects. They need to be transported alive and unharmed. If so, then there is only one way. As far as he knows, this is the only option. The system window reported mass teleportation. It is a spell that simultaneously transports many people to one place. Leonard said, they need to hurry. They have already achieved their goal. To transport so many people at once, a huge space is needed, which means he can guess where they are heading. Is Sir Bradley pursuing them now? The guy who was lying on the ground answered, they are combing this entire area. MC released mana and said, I see. In that case, he needs to rest for a while. The guy asked again, rest? I mean, Leonard's mana pierced his body and he cried out loudly. MC said, he is looking in the wrong place, Sir Bradley. He threw the knight's body over his shoulder and said, he needs to let him know somehow. At this rate, House Cardenas faces a crushing defeat. He thought no one would listen to the advice of a simple cadet. He had no choice but to bring Sir Bradley there himself. After a while, Bradley looked around and asked, has everyone run away? Cowards, just think. Throw away even his knightly pride. He turned around and yelled, who's here? He saw MC with a knight on his shoulder and thought, these movements, is he a survivor from Curtis? He ordered to destroy the intruder. MC quickly pushed off the ground and thought, well, let him follow him. He turned around and saw swords flying towards him. Bradley ordered not to let him escape. Leonard dodged the attack and dove down. Bradley followed him and yelled, for a dog of Curtis, he is very fast. MC thought, great. Since he lured them here, we can consider everything a success. Bradley swung his sword and yelled, how dare he? He looked ahead in surprise and asked, the coast? He was so carried away by the chase that he didn't notice. MC thought, just don't die, Sir Bradley. The real enemy is about to appear. A knight came out to meet him and said, just think, someone actually got here. He ordered not to rush to die. Bradley looked at the knight and asked, so he arranged all this? The fifth shadow answered, this is just the first small step towards their great goal. Bradley asked, does he call kidnapping children a great deed? He will not leave this island. Let him surrender peacefully. The fifth shadow told him not to be so impatient. Does he really think they landed on this island without a plan? He has already lost. Bradley gripped the hilt of his sword even tighter and cried out, damn it, he will not let him escape. The fifth shadow said, there are still 15 minutes until full activation. And until then, his opponent will be himself. He can flounder as long as he wants. Bradley frowned, clenching his jaw, and MC mentally asked him to hold on a little longer. He will save the knights. He moved to the knights' camp and thought, he is hiding his presence, and they do not even look in his direction. He did not expect that they would let their guard down so much because of this duel. Here's his chance. He went into the tent with the prisoners and freed them. The guy asked in surprise, "What? The shackles are removed? He's not from Curtis, right? Why is he helping them?" MC replied, "He has neither time nor need to explain. They need to leave here immediately." The guys looked at him carefully and asked on behalf of all the knights to accept their deepest gratitude. MC moved from there and thought, good, the hostage issue is resolved. He smiled and thought, and now to the remaining matters. He took out his swords and went outside, quickly attacking the knights. He thought, it's time to take out the trash. At that moment, the fifth shadow attacked Bradley and cut off his arm. He said he was not satisfied yet, but it would do for a warm-up. Bradley grabbed his arm and cried out, "Nightmare." The fifth shadow said, "This pathetic game is over. In the near future, Curtis will once again ascend to the pinnacle of swordsmanship. He feels it." He looked to the side and said, "The one who was standing in their way all this time, he is approaching." He jumped up and headed towards MC. The fifth shadow slammed his sword on the ground, and Leonard thought, the fifth shadow. The fifth shadow looked at him and said, "What a disappointment. And to think, the one who killed their comrades and interfered with their work is just some kid. Good. To calm the souls of his fallen comrades, he will finish off only him." He created a seal and walked forward, over the corpses of warriors. The fifth shadow looked around and asked, "Did he kill them all? How dare he kill his comrades? He will tear him to pieces. The devil from Cardenas." MC frowned and thought, he is at the level of a swordmaster. This is a completely different level compared to everyone he has faced before. It is still too early, but since it happened like this, MC swung his sword and ordered to die. And the fifth shadow frowned and asked, "What is this? How does a youngster like him know about the aura blade?" Leonard said, "It's a pity, but he doesn't need to know." He struck the fifth shadow with his sword again, and he screamed. He thought, with his current strength he can only maintain the aura for 3 minutes. He must finish before that time. The fifth shadow tried to attack him and ordered him to die, and then asked irritably, "Why doesn't he die, the devil?" MC thought. He lost his composure. Now he can deal with him with ease. No, he can even counterattack. He will dodge and close the distance. The fifth shadow said, "He is caught." MC looked at him and thought, "What?" The fifth shadow answered mockingly, "It's a tearing poison. Even the smallest dose is fatal. Soon it will reach his heart and completely cut off his mana and pulse." MC thanked him for the explanation and rushed to attack. The fifth shadow looked at him in surprise and asked, "What?" A stream of mana was directed towards him and he screamed, "Why? Why isn't the poison working?" Leonard wondered, is his heart really resistant not only to magic, but also to poison? He answered, it seems to him. He already told him. He doesn't need to know that. The fifth shadow got angry and waved his hand, summoning energy creatures. MC thought, has he gone berserk? Or does he think he can hit if he attacks mindlessly? If it's difficult to get close, then he will simply pierce him through. MC released his mana forward and knocked the fifth shadow off his feet. He got up and screamed, he, a terrible little brat. Even if it costs him his life, he will take it with him. From his side, snakes headed towards Leonard again. He frowned and thought, is he going to squeeze his mana to the limit? Is he putting everything he has into this? He jumped to the side and thought, this is a feint. MC attacked the snakes and thought, I need to finish him off calmly and quickly. If he concentrates aura in the blade and strikes straight, he will be able to reach him. Leonard dealt with the snakes and the fifth shadow attacked. The system window reported, shock shackles. He jumped to the side and thought, he also has a magical artifact. The fifth shadow grabbed MC by the neck and said, he let down his guard, kid. He thought he was just mindlessly throwing mana around. From the very beginning, he was waiting for him to come closer. At this distance, he will definitely be able to finish him off. His luck has run out, kid. They will see each other in hell. Suddenly, Fabian's voice was heard. He said he was sorry, but this was not going to happen. The fifth shadow attacked and screamed. Who was he? When did he get here? Was this for the subordinates who went ahead of him? MC grabbed his neck and said that it looked like he was desperately trying to kill him. So desperate that he did not even notice the approach of Commander Fabian. The fifth shadow asked, what is the meaning of all this? Fabian apologized to Leonard for being late. He had grown amazingly in the short time they had not seen each other. Thanks to him, they were able to save the Bradley. Let him accept his gratitude. And there are also many things he would like to ask him. MC asked if he could get some sleep first. Fabian answered, of course. No need to rush and get a good rest. Then first he must clean up the remaining trash. The fifth shadow on energy limbs walked towards him and said, this is not the end. Fabian said, what an inhuman obsession. But this will be the end of it. He struck fifth shadow, who suddenly rushed towards MC. Fabian turned around and thought, that idiot, that was his target all along. Fifth shadow extended his hand towards Leonard and said, at least he'll take him with him. MC's eyes widened in surprise, and then there was a bright flash. Fabian said, they were tricked to think they'd resort to such vile methods. Bradley said they probably used mass teleportation to take him. Besides, the activation was incomplete, so the destination is unknown. Fabian said, he thought they were only targeting him, and he let his guard down. Bradley said, to think he was targeting Leonard. He most likely took him because he considered Leonard such a serious threat that he was willing to go against his own principles. To think some apprentice knight would confront someone of transcendental level. He had seen many apprentice knights in the ranks of the young dragon knights, but never had he seen such a frighteningly rapid growth. Perhaps they are on the verge of the birth of a new legend in the history of the House of Cardenas. He believes they should immediately request reinforcements from the main residence. Fabian said that he does not object. He entrusts all further actions to him. The House of Cardenas must find this young man, no matter the cost. But until then, he needs to take care of himself. After some time, MC was lying in the water. The girl from the ship saw him and asked, "What is this?" After a while, Leonard thought, he is shaking and smells of the sea. Is he on the ship? He opened his eyes, and the girl asked, "Is he awake?" She has a lot of questions for him. She saved his life, so let him be kind and answer them honestly. MC thought, she saved his life? The girl extended her hand and asked for forgiveness. She hasn't introduced herself yet, right? She is Francis, the captain of the Aquamarine. And who is he? MC looked at her and answered, "He is Leonard. He is Leonard from the Arcadia Empire." Francis screamed, "Stop!" He said, "From Arcadia? And he was brought here from so far away. And how did he get here?" MC answered, "It was an accident. He was sucked into a spatial rift. He remembers almost nothing after that." The girl behind him said, "Get into the epicenter of spatial magic and remain unharmed." "Is he by any chance from the Cardenas house?" Francis turned around and asked, "Marion?" She said, "His body is trained so much that it's hard to believe his age. If he's from Cardenas, that explains everything." MC grinned and thought, "So the Cardenas house is known even overseas?" He answered, "Yes, he's from Cardenas. Is that a problem?" Marion said, "Madam, if the Cardenas house is looking for this young man, they better not interfere. This will not end well. You need to be careful." Suddenly there was a scream. Captain Francis. The guy ran into the room and screamed, "Hurry to the pier! This gang of idiots! Luciano's gang is on the rampage." Luciano Peterson stood with a drink on the pier and his bandits scattered in different directions. Marion turned around in irritation and said, "Idiots! They attacked on the very day when they were supposed to be at the council." Francis turned away from MC and told Leonard to forgive her. She wanted to give him a normal tour, but he looked at her carefully and thought, it seems they have a long-standing feud. She is worried about something. Francis said he can leave as soon as he comes to his senses. His clothes, sword, and dimensional bag, over there. MC asked if he could ask a question. Why did she save him? Francis. She smiled and said, she just thought he needed help. She doesn't abandon anyone. He looked at her carefully and thought, although it seems like she needs help herself now, doesn't she? Francis. After a while the girls came out onto the pier and Luciano said who they had here. They haven't seen each other for a long time. Let her smile. Why is she so gloomy? Marion said, she didn't come here to exchange pleasantries. He's as noisy as always. Luciano looked at her displeased and said, he came to talk to her mistress, so let the dog shut up. Does she know who she's talking to? Marion screamed, Luciano Peterson. Luciano walked past her and ordered her to step aside. This is a gentleman's conversation. He turned to Francis and said, don't be stubborn. Let her just give him Aquamarine. This ship is too good for someone like her. You can't let a relic of the fallen royal family rot. Just because her old man kicked the bucket doesn't mean everything is hers now. Francis asked Luciano to go away. She would never give up Aquamarine. Luciano said he was offering a good price, so she'd better sell it amicably. They, guys, are just making life difficult for themselves. He'll destroy them all. MC quickly attacked him and turned around and asked, Francis, would she mind if he killed this man? He thought it was better to immediately eliminate those who could become a hindrance. Francis's eyes widened in surprise and said, she doesn't care what happens to his people, but please, let him leave him alive. Marion asked, what just happened? Luciano shouted, brother, let him quickly pick up his hand. He screamed, he's an idiot. Francis, how dare she do this to him? He'll kill her. Guys, kill them all. The man swung his club and screamed, how did he manage to do this to his brother? MC quickly dealt with them, and Marion said, even swinging a sword wouldn't work. What kind of man is he? Francis asked, is this the power of the Cardenas house? Leonard kicked Luciano in the back and said, it looks like he's already regrew his arm. How should he finish him off? The girls exchanged glances, and MC asked, is something wrong? Francis said, yes. Despite his appearance, this man, he is the illegitimate son of the supreme ruler of Atlantis. This place, the Atlantean Maritime Union, is governed by the Union Council, and this Union Council is the de facto ruler of the local seas. He is a big man, one of the 5 leaders of the Union Council. MC thought there would be more problems with him than he thought. In that case, he turned to Francis and said, in that case, he will be her bodyguard for now. He thought, he will stay close, help her with problems and gather information. He asked, does that mean he will be her bodyguard? Francis extended her hand to him and said, of course. They are very happy to have him. She hopes they will work together. MC said, the feeling is mutual, Francis. By the way, what should they do with that guy? They need to lock him up somewhere. Francis said, as long as they don't kill him, it's okay. It looks like even his own father has abandoned him. She thought, so he'll turn a blind eye to it as long as his son's dignity is not damaged. MC said, well, that makes things easier. Francis went ahead and told him to follow her. She needed to go somewhere. She was counting on his protection. MC replied, he understood. So should he call her captain? Francis replied, if it's convenient for him. Leonard, he could just call her Fran. Leonard said, okay. He suggested they try again, Fran. She smiled back at him and asked, can he try again? He said, Fran. She muttered, it's not so bad. Marion asked, madam? After a while, MC looked around and said, it's an impressive sight. He had never seen anything like it in the Arcadia Empire. Francis said, it's a trading city. They value appearance above all else here. In fact, it's all just for show, but that's exactly why so many adventurers gather here. And this is Bermuda, Atlantis Adventure Squad headquarters. B007, Squad Aquamarine. The system window reported, B007, leader of Aquamarine Francis Lelvan Oceanus. Her authority is confirmed. She will lead him to the Zephyr Hall. The Zephyr Hall is the hall for B-rank adventure squads. They will pass. MC walked through the hall, surprised, thinking how luxurious it was. Is B-rank really that high? If so, then Aquamarine might be bigger than he thought. They were met by Clara, who greeted them and said she was the employee in charge of the Zephyr Hall. Today she would help them with squad registration. With Leonard's arrival, their squad would officially have 3 members. MC thought, 3? Clara said, Master Leonard, does he have some kind of specialization? She needed to record the overall combat capabilities of their squad. The guy sitting behind them screamed, Clara, why even ask? He's clearly just this young lady's toy. MC turned around and asked, Fran, should he deal with him? She replied, no, there's no need. This happens all the time. The guy swung his sword and asked, he's just there to show off in this tiny 2-man squad, right? Leonard knocked the sword out of his hands and held it to his neck. He asked, now, is that enough to judge his skills? Clara's eyes widened in surprise and said, yes, of course. By the way, where is he from? MC wondered about his origin. Judging by Marin's reaction, he didn't need to say he was from the Arcadia Empire. But keeping quiet wasn't an option either. He said the Kingdom of Curtis. He thought it was a shame that was the only country he could think of. Clara handed them a piece of paper and said, that completes their registration in Aquamarine. MC took it in his hands, and Frances thought happily, finally, a new member in her squad. Leonard asked, Fran, they finished? She thought, no. Her captain's dignity, she answered. I understand. This is good work. Now he is officially a member of Aquamarine, Leonard. Marion grabbed her head and sighed loudly. Frances smiled and said, anyway, that's it for today. He is free. Why doesn't he look around? She sees that he is interested in the city. She will be glad to work with him. MC smiled slightly and asked, in that case, maybe he could ask her for one favor? After a while, Leonard approached the building from where a voice came. It must be Leonard. Fran told her everything about him. He can come in. MC went inside and said thank you with her permission. The girl said, he doesn't look like a magician, and yet he wants to know about magic? She snapped her fingers and the objects rose into the air. She ordered him to tell everything. After a while she said, I see, that's what it is. MC said, yes, ever since he was consumed by spatial magic, he realized he needed a way to counter it. He knows and understands almost nothing about magic. Esther, a 4th circle mage of the Atlantis Tower, looked at him thoughtfully and said, I see. So he's not just trying to become a swordsman mage. The best way to learn magic is to get used to it. She knows a method that even a swordsman can easily master. Those who wield aura use spirit stones to increase mana, right? The principle is the same. They will accustom his body to magic. To do this, he will absorb a spirit stone with a magic circuit engraved on it. MC said, but he doesn't plan to use magic. Esther told him not to worry, unless he has a really weird body structure. This is the fastest way. Besides, it's her duty. As a member of Aquamarine, she must guide the juniors. Otherwise, that girl will barge in here and start yelling at her again. MC cried out in tension, and Esther asked, what? Any ordinary person should have been able to absorb it easily. MC thought, could it be this constitution? After a while, Esther said, usually it's not this intense. It seems like everything is finally calming down. Is he okay, Leonard? He replied, yes. Esther wondered if the Cardenas family was gifted in more than just swordsmanship. He rewrote the entire spell as if there was a mistake in the original. MC directed the man aside and said, he's more than fine. He managed to reinterpret one of the spells engraved on the circle stone. It's a magic arrow. Esther said, it's a basic spell, of course, but is that even possible? Leonard said he deemed it useless because of its low effectiveness, so he gave it the shape of a sharp dagger. Esther asked him to wait. He changed the basic form of this? Even she can't do that yet. And 5 at once. MC asked Esther if she could show him her outlines as well. She replied, she doesn't mind, but why? Leonard replied, he sees things that can be improved. After a while, a man stood in the Atlantis Magic Tower. The Supreme Elder of the Atlantis Magic Tower, the 7th Circle Mage, Jack Russell, told him to give him some peace with all this fuss. He's very busy. He is the Supreme Elder of the Magic Tower after all. Esther said she knows. How can his only student not know this? MC said it's nice to meet you. He is Leonard from Aquamarine. Jack said he is Jack Russell. Outsiders are rarely allowed here, so they need to explain themselves. Esther said, Master, she has reached the 5th circle. Jack said in surprise, she couldn't take it for years. How did she do it? Esther told him to see for himself. Fireball. She created a stream of mana and said she learned to change the shape of her magic like this. By compressing and twisting it into a liquid, she increased its power many times over. Leonard adjusted its contours and gave advice. MC said, Esther, you shouldn't have used that here. She got scared and loudly asked for forgiveness. She doesn't have full control of it yet. Jack looked at it in surprise and asked, this young man, has he reached the level of transformation available only to 6th Circle mages? That's curious. To transcend the boundaries of magic without even striving for it, something that cannot be achieved without true enlightenment. He did her a favor she would never repay in her lifetime. Esther most likely knew this, which is why she brought him here. He extended his hand to MC and asked if he would like to become his apprentice. There is no better opportunity for a mage. MC apologized, but he had already embraced the way of the sword. Jack said, in immediate response, What a disappointment. In that case, as a reward, he will grant him the same powers as Esther. They will have unlimited access to the tower, its knowledge, and magical artifacts. Although, all this taken together will not compare to his personal mentorship. Moreover, he guarantees him good relations with the Aquamarine Guild. MC thanked him and said that he will definitely visit him often. He thought that friendship with the Magic Tower would be a huge advantage for Aquamarine. Sometime later, in Bermuda, in the Zephyr Hall, Francis asked, "What? He met with the Supreme Elder of the Magic Tower?" MC replied, "Yes. He promised to maintain good relations with Aquamarine." Francis happily said, "Leonard." She couldn't believe he had brought them such good luck. The Magic Tower was a huge organization, comparable to Bermuda and the Allied Council. She couldn't believe they had established contact with them. Leonard asked, "Fran, more importantly, what is this list of names?" Francis said, "These are the people she wants to invite to their guild. They can't expand their operations without new people. Without Aquamarine, it would be difficult for her to even reach rank B." Leonard asked, "The stronger the newcomers, the better, right?" Francis said, "Well, yeah, of course. There's someone over there who can be useful." The guy who caught the arrow stood to the side and asked, "How dare she do this to him? Let her strike him down. A terrible elven half-breed. Don't let her think she'll get away with this." One-eyed Ninian. She drew an arrow and fired towards the guy. Ninian said he was lucky they met here. Idiot. The guys surrounded her and said, "Take it easy. Isn't that too much, Ninian? If they find her, does she think she'll be able to pay off her wages? Stop being stubborn. Let her give in to Santa Maria already. The ransom for her sister is quite a sum, isn't it?" MC said they were overdoing it. He fired towards them and raised a wind. Ninian asked in surprise who he was. MC answered, "He was Leonard, from the Aquamarine Guild." Miriam thanked Clara for the bow. Francis asked, "Leonard, does he use a bow too?" Ninian, right? She can join them. As far as she can see, this is a good option for her too. She won't regret it. Ninian thought about this shot. It's on a completely different level than her shooting, which only imitates spiritual arts. If only she could learn it. The guy said she wouldn't regret it, of course. He heard that Aquamarine is on the verge of collapse. He advises her to think carefully. No one will save her when this sinking ship goes down. The guy said mockingly, "Unlike some hopeless guild, the captain of Santa Maria is none other than magnificent." Before he could finish speaking, Santa Maria's captain, Christopher Conrad, suddenly ordered him to shut up. He doesn't need to introduce himself. Everyone already knows who they are, although he supposes some B-rank nobodies wouldn't understand that. MC thought, this guy. He looks like an idiot, but he's almost reached the level of transcendence. In open combat, he would be at an extreme disadvantage, but a skilled archer like Ninian is indispensable in a naval battle. He can't let such talent slip away. Even if he has to fight for her, she will be theirs. Some time ago, the girl took Ninian's hand and said, "Big sister." Ninian asked why she is her big sister. She is a half-breed, half-elf. The girl replied, her mother told her. She said that they are sisters. She is so happy that Ninian is her big sister. She and Vivian are half-sisters. They have different fathers. Unlike Ninian, a half-breed, she is an elementalist with incomparable talent. And yet Vivian was her only friend and her family. But one day, that happiness crumbled in an instant. Conrad hit Ninian on the head with his sword and said, "Well, he heard the elven settlement is far from here, but did Vivian send a distress signal from there? Does that mean she is her big sister, Ninian? She tried hard to get here, but what a pity. Her little sister is already his." Ninian ordered him to bring Vivian back. She will do anything for her. Conrad asked again, "What do you want? What can she even do with elemental magic that is not even close to her sister's? He has no use for a half-breed like her. Let her go." Ninian thought, with her strength, there is no way she can defeat him, although she is the only one who can save Vivian. MC stepped forward and said, he challenges him to a duel. Santa Maria. Conrad asked again, "What?" Leonard answered, "A duel for Aquamarine. The termination of Vivian's contract is at stake." Marian screamed, "Stop. They can't just decide this." She turned around and said, "Mistress, he intends to unleash a real war against Santa Maria. Please let her stop him." MC said, "Fran, this is a chance to get an experienced archer and elementalist. Will she trust him with it this time?" Francis said she understands Leonard. He grabbed Ninian's hand and asked, "Why is he hanging? Does he lack the courage?" Conrad grabbed him by the shirt and screamed, "He's a minor! A duel with him. What nonsense are they putting on the line? He knows how rare an elf elementalist is, right? Even if hundreds of them united." Francis interrupted him and said, "They'll put up the rights to purchase Aquamarine. He knows the value of Aquamarine perfectly well, doesn't he? They'll also add the rights to research A-rank Santa Maria. She thinks that makes the deal fair." Conrad looked at her in surprise, and Leonard thought that's some serious fire support. Conrad said, "If she's going that far, fine." However, he has an additional condition. The duelists must be limited to members of Aquamarine. It would be a problem if the baggage lady called a swordmaster or something, and the duel will be a one-on-one duel between MC and him. He won't accept any objections. Well, he can't wait for the day of the duel. After some time, a cry was heard in the Tower of Magic Atlantis. Is he in his right mind? Marian slammed her fist on the table and said, "Despite appearances, Conrad is the leader of an A-rank adventurer squad and a magic swordsman." Francis said it was because he angered her and he's disgusting. Marian clutched her head and said, "Even she, a top B ranker, and Ninian together have no chance of winning, and they can't just run away anymore." Ninian asked for forgiveness. She was in this because of her. Marian replied, "It's fine. They can't turn back anyway. The problem is what to do next." At that moment, MC rose from the table, thrust his sword forward, and covered himself in mana. Francis's eyes widened and asked, "Aura Blade. Leonard, he should have been at the 3rd level of external power, right?" Leonard replied, yes, publicly. He just hadn't needed to show his true strength until now. The current him would never lose to Conrad. Frances said happily as expected of him, Leonard. She's glad she believed in him. MC thanked her and she said, Conrad hasn't reached the level of a sword master yet, so they will definitely win. Ninian said, but he is a magic swordsman. Doesn't he need countermeasures against magic, not just fencing? MC laughed and said, no need to worry. Jack said, there's no way he can be a greater genius than that. Okay, he understands the situation, and he wants him to witness the duel? MC said, please, this is an important duel. Aquamarine is at stake. They want to exclude any dishonest actions as much as possible. Jack said, it's a simple enough story. After all, he is Esther's benefactor. Besides, he doesn't think he can do without dirty tricks either. After a while, the man in the office turned around and said, he's here, Conrad. Conrad asked, did he call him advisor Pablo? The commander of the A-rank adventurer group, Moby Dick, and a member of the Atlantic Union Council, Pablo L. Orlando Peterson, said he had heard this story. This is the perfect opportunity to obtain aquamarine. Conrad said, yes, that's right. Pablo gave him a capsule and told him to drink it before the duel. For a short time, it will allow him to display strength superior to a sword master. Conrad said, a secret elixir for some youngster. He could have dealt with him instantly without it. Pablo said, Conrad, does it look like he's asking him for a favor right now? Conrad fearfully asked to forgive him. Advisor Pablo. Pablo said, judging by their overconfident behavior, they must have some kind of plan. They can't afford to miss such an opportunity, can they? He needs to obtain aquamarine by any means necessary. Conrad said, yes, he will definitely succeed. At any cost. The day of the duel. The Grand Auditorium of Bermuda. On the surface, it was billed as an event venue, but in reality, it was an arena. The guy said it was good they were organizing such an event, otherwise he was bored. How much did he bet? The other guy told him not to get excited. Conrad was still going to win. According to rumors, the challenger was just a boy. Well, he might have potential, but the outcome was already decided. Frances frowned in irritation and ordered herself to just endure. The host said, so they introduced the participants. From Santa Maria, Conrad, and from Aquamarine, Leonard. They were already glaring at each other. Considering how high the stakes are, this duel requires an authoritative witness, the chief elder of the Tower of Magic, Lord Jack Russell. Jack thought everything was exactly as Fran predicted. A shout was heard a while ago. What did she say? She was betting the entire aquamarine fortune on this duel, and she wanted her to do it? Frances replied, in this situation, only she could take her place, Esther. Please, she was begging her. This is a chance to multiply Aquamarine's fortune. Esther said she also believes in Leonard's abilities, but Frances said she's sure all the spectators will bet on Conrad. There's significantly less information registered about Leonard in the Adventurers Guild than about Conrad. Jack folded his arms and said, so she's betting on the underdog. Frances said, yes, that's right. Most likely, almost no one will bet on Leonard. MC told Esther not to worry. As long as he has that sword from the Tower of Magic, the chance of losing is 1 in a million. Esther said she understands. Since he insists so much, then she just needs to bet Aquamarine's entire fortune on him, right? MC replied, yes, he's asking her. A cry was immediately heard. So let the duel begin. Conrad put his hand on Leonard's head and said, you little brat, he knows that murder isn't considered a crime in this arena, right? MC asked again, what's wrong? Is he scared? Conrad blushed with anger and said that he underestimated him until the very end. He would turn that smug face of his into mincemeat. The duel began, and fiery mana spread everywhere. MC thought, a 9th rank mage. This is a problem. He has no choice. He must immediately use the high-class sword he borrowed from the magic tower. A high-class artifact that can be imbued with magic. He will turn everything upside down with the help of Westra magic. Conrad asked in surprise, what? He's a magic swordsman too? Leonard quickly rushed forward and attacked Conrad. Rocks flew in all directions, and Conrad mockingly said, even with his vaunted speed he can't resist gravity. Leonard flew back, but was covered in mana, after which a bright explosion occurred. Conrad's eyes widened in surprise as a wound appeared on his face. He flew back and fell to the ground. He screamed loudly, and blood gushed from his mouth. Leonard walked towards him and said, for a magic swordsman to not even draw his sword is too arrogant. Conrad thought about completely blocking his lightning strike, but he had let his guard down. In that case, he has no choice. He will have to use this. He put the capsule in his mouth and bit down, after which a strong stream of mana burst out. Conrad said, he's the only person he will definitely kill. MC thought, what is this? To suddenly release so much power. Moreover, it is power comparable to a sword master. He prepared himself. Leonard swung his sword and attacked Conrad, whose eyes glowed brightly. Conrad looked up and said, the games are over. Insect. Leonard looked at him carefully, when suddenly he felt a stream of mana on himself. MC thought, Aura Blade. So he finally took up the sword seriously. He said, well then, he accepts his challenge. He released his mana and directed it into a strike. Conrad cried out in displeasure. This is impossible. This kid is using an aura blade? A bright MC mana burst into his body and a loud scream rang out. The manager of Aeolus, the A-rank hall in Bermuda, Carmen jumped from his seat and screamed, This is a deception. This can't be. This duel is invalid. There's no way a magic swordsman who has mastered an aura blade could lose to some kid. He frowned and thought, this is terrible. Wow, he lost even after using the elixir. If this continues, his position in Bermuda will be. Jack said he can't allow this. This is invalid, he says. The notarization of Jack Russell, the chief elder of the Tower of Magic. Is he going to treat it so casually? He said not to tell him. They're not going to agree with that idiot, are they? The host said, yes, sir. Carmen said it was a rash remark. He begs for his forgiveness. Jack thought even the invalidation went exactly as Leonard predicted. With that, his role is complete. How does he intend to resolve this situation? After a while, Aquamarine set out. Francis put the papers on the table and said, it's passed. The offer has been accepted. Now they can explore A-rank waters too. Well, there are still conditions before they are officially recognized as an A-rank adventurer group. Since they received a huge reward for the duel, they don't have to worry about money for a while. She's grateful, Leonard. MC said it's an honor to serve her. Vivian said, Master Leonard, right? Thank him so much for saving them, the sisters. How can they repay him? She's pleased to meet you. Her name is Vivian. She's a wind elementalist, Vivian. MC said, their interests simply coincided. As long as they fulfill their duty as members of Aquamarine, that's enough. Francis waved and said, hello? She's Commander Francis. Ninian asked, are they sure that's really enough? Maybe they can do something else for them. Francis smiled and said, from now on, they are both their comrades. Do comrades really need to do all this? Well, Marian will show them to their room. Marian asked not to push her so hard. After a while, Francis and MC went outside. He asked if she sent everyone to their rooms because of him. Francis replied, the reason she wants them to become an A-rank adventurer party, she hasn't told him yet. Has she? MC replied, yes, although he can mostly guess. Francis asked again, really? Then let him listen to her for a little while. After all, she can't trust anyone if there is no one nearby to listen. Leonard said, yes, of course, Francis. He asked to let him listen to her story. 8 years ago, Allied Council, the commander of the Aquamarine Adventure Group, Niord, asked, are they planning to simply leave the rift in the 5th Sea region as is? Pablo said the rift's contamination level is being carefully monitored. There won't be any problems for at least another 30 years. He, who is on the front lines, should know this better than anyone, shouldn't he? Niord said, only if no anomalies occur, Pablo. Pablo spoke up, saying that even if an unforeseen situation arises, it can be resolved. Besides, this is an opportunity to obtain even more otherworldly byproducts. What are they so afraid of? Niord grabbed him and screamed, is he in his right mind, Pablo? Is he planning to leave the danger unattended for the sake of some otherworldly byproducts? Pablo said, this Atlantis has become a city of wealth precisely because of those very byproducts he speaks of. Doesn't he know that? They will listen to the other advisors' opinions. Niord let him go, and Pablo said, it seems the answer is already obvious. Niord slammed his fist on the table and asked, what a nightmare. Are they all blinded by money? They can't wait any longer for help from other A-rank adventurer groups. Everyone needs to prepare to set sail. They, Aquamarine, will seal all the rifts, came the answer. Yes, sir. The ship set sail from the shore. The A-rank adventurer group, Aquamarine, at the time had 1 7th rank mage and 3 transcendence level experts. Led by the elemental knight and commander Niord, they sealed 4 rifts in less than a month. After a while, a voice rang out. Advisor Niord, he needs to return already, even if he's reducing the number of rifts for safety's sake. The atmosphere in the city is extremely unusual. Does he even realize how much work he's stealing from adventurers? Niord replied, he'll return as soon as he seals the giant rift, Charybdis. Someone asked him from the portal, what? It's the largest rift of them all. He told me, stop messing around. MC asked, did something go wrong there? Francis replied, no, the Aquamarine back then was ridiculously strong. She frowned and said, they were strong. She continued her story. Someone said, great, now they can finally go home, right? Niord replied, yes, this will significantly delay the demonization. Although he feels like everyone will yell at him when he gets back. It took a whole week, so his beloved daughter will probably be angry with him too. Isn't that right, Fran? Francis asked. Is he finally coming home, father? Suddenly there was a loud explosion and a scream. It's Moby Dick. Niord asked. Pablo? He decided to attack from behind? So this is what he was leading up to from the start? Francis asked. Father? Niord grabbed his sword and shouted. Marian. He entrusts Francis to her. He ordered her to steer Aquamarine to the docks at top speed. Once they get there, they won't be able to pull this off in front of everyone. All remaining fighters must intercept Moby Dick. The fighters responded, yes, sir. Pablo said, he doesn't know his place. Is he willing to lose everything for the sake of stupid pride? He ordered Aquamarine's will to fight to be broken right here and now. Niord ordered him to shut up. Aquamarine's honor and will be inherited, even if he dies. Marian grabbed Francis and jumped back as the explosion occurred. In the present, Francis said, so she can't surrender. The scale of the story turned out to be greater than he thought, right? After all, Atlantis itself is essentially their enemy. So if he wants to leave, he can do so at any time. MC replied, no. As long as he can cross swords with the strong, that's exactly what he desires. Especially if the enemy is a scoundrel who doesn't deserve mercy. Francis looked at him carefully and then laughed out loud. She said he was truly amazing in many ways. Well, will he follow her? As a member of Aquamarine, Leonard said yes. He looks forward to working together, Fran. After a while, he was training with the other crew members. MC looked around and thought, they all move quite well. This is their first sparring, but they are quite skilled. Marian waved her hand and said, enough. The coordination between the two of them is vital for their future journeys. They have both honed their fighting styles, and their progress is amazing. MC said, well, their guests are coming, so they will leave it at that. The head of the A-rank Bermuda Hall, Benjamin, cleared his throat and said he had been watching their sparring. It seems true what they say. He defeated Conrad in a duel. The ability to simultaneously defeat elite B-rank fighters like Marion and Ninian is an achievement in itself, and with a high-level spirit master, they definitely have A-rank strength. However, Francis said they were too short-handed, weren't they? Benjamin replied, yes, they had enough strength to achieve A-rank, but he was afraid they didn't have enough fighters to start work immediately. MC asked how many more people they needed. Benjamin held up 2 fingers and said 2. If 2 more came, they would be promoted to A-rank immediately. After a while, Leonard was walking down the street and saying the atmosphere here was completely different from the Atlantis he had seen before. Would they really find allies in a place like this? Francis replied, yes. If they could convince them, they would undoubtedly become a formidable force. Suddenly, they were ordered to stop. Guys, do they even realize where they had wandered to? The man said with displeasure, this is the Galano brothers' domain. Youngsters like them shouldn't be here. They need to go home, quickly. Don't let them think they'll be treated with care just because they're children. Leonard walked up to him and knocked the sword out of his hands. He said they didn't come to fight, but if they drew their swords, he wouldn't just stand there. He quickly elbowed the man in the stomach and sent him flying. MC swung his leg at the other man, but he quickly moved. He thought he was fast and dangerous. The man said they might look like skilled fighters on the side of the road, but for mercenaries who fight for their lives every day, this is child's play. MC quickly jumped back and said he thought so. Francis took off her hood and asked, Mr. Galano? He asked in surprise. Francis? Is that really that little Francis? They haven't seen each other for a long time. She's grown a lot. MC asked, is this the whaler Galano? Francis answered, yes, he's the one she was looking for. The man asked, was she looking for him? What did she suddenly need? Francis answered, they are planning to revive Aquamarine, and for that they need him, Mr. Galano. The legendary hero Aquamarine Denton Buri. As his youngest, she asks to share her power with the resurgent Aquamarine. Please, let him be their ally. With his skill, they will quickly regain their former glory. Denton told her to go home. Then, Aquamarine made an enemy not only in Moby Dick, they made an enemy in Atlantis itself. She wants him to do what his brother couldn't. He asked for forgiveness, but he can't. Following a path that has no future doesn't interest him. Francis, she needs to stop being stubborn and find another way. The next time they meet, they will talk about something better. Francis looked down sadly and said, then it really won't work. She thought it wouldn't be easy to persuade him, but suddenly, MC interrupted her and ran ahead, and she asked him to wait. Leonard? He ran towards Denton, who turned around with displeasure and asked what he was doing. MC said that if words couldn't convince him, he would use his fists. He quickly hit him and Denton flew to the side. Leonard asked, did he say he wasn't interested in a path without a future? But for someone who says that, he seems blind to the very path he's walking. Denton tried to get up and said, he's an idiot. What is he even thinking? MC said he'll show him the path he should take. He started twirling the spear in his hands and thought, his skill with a spear is worse than his sword, but it's enough to provoke him. This man, his skill is not for show. Denton asked, is he challenging him with a spear? He's underestimating him. It's better for him to put his life on the line right away.